Good evening, everybody. This Thursday, the 17th of October, for the Housing and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We have quite a large agenda tonight, 2 items which involve some public speaking. I'll start on the agenda. Fire evacuation procedures. There is nothing expected. Any alarm is genuine. So please get out of the building without using the lifts. So fire alarm, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit located at the rear and side of the room. Go down the stairs and meet in the War Memorial Park. It's actually over there. Webcasting of meeting. You should see coming along. Yes, it is. To note that the open proceedings of this meeting are being webcast on the internet. So you can actually watch them instantly, or you can go in later on and go back and find them. It is all there for you. Item 3, to receive apologies for absence. Which, could you assist me on this? No, we don't have any apologies, that's why I can't find them, thank you. 4, resignations and replacements. Councillor Mrs Still has been replaced by Councillor Miller. Councillor Leeks has been replaced by Councillor Mrs Tucker. Councillor Mrs Waldridge has been replaced by Councillor Keating. We welcome him here specifically because he's relevant to one of the papers. Thank you. Thank you. Right. No, but it is very relevant that you're here. Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest or whipping decisions. Councillor James.
On the papers. In relation to paper B, presentation on adult social care, my father is in receipt of social care.
Thank you for declaring. Hopefully you can still participate though.
Yeah, I don't have a personal interest, so yeah, I will be participating.
Thank you, Chair. With relation to paper C, D-side, most of the committee will know that my husband's a cabinet member at Hampshire. I have checked with legal here, and I've checked with legal at Hampshire, and I have no conflict of interest in sitting in through that paper. I said my husband is a cabinet member at Hampshire County Council. I have no conflict of interest in sitting through the D-side paper.
The 2 declarations we've had, I believe, are for information. I don't think they actually debar anybody from speaking. It's just to be completely clear. So thank you for those 2 members. Urgent items, we have none, apart from what's on the agenda. To confirm the minutes, paper A. Now, on paper A, 6 of 49, halfway down the paper, under 1513, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of July is a typo. Apologies about that. The meeting was held on the 18th of July to ratify the previous minutes, which were a month earlier. Can I ask the officer to come in with the correct date? 27th of June. Apart from that, I believe everything is correct. Can we have a Councillor Bierman?
Chair, this isn't a correction, but a query in relation to it. Had we had the previous meeting that was abandoned, we were going to have a report on environmental things like PV panels and so on. And can I ask just when that's coming forward, since it didn't happen, since we didn't have the meeting?
I'm not familiar at the moment. I don't want to give a wrong answer.
I hope it hasn't been lost, because it's something quite important.
I'll ask the officer to note the question and I will look at it tomorrow. Thank you. Can I please have a proposal and second of Councillor Mrs Washbourne.
Thank you. On page 8 of our agenda here, bullet point 7, it notes that the committee requested a report to a future meeting of the committee to examine charging initiatives and aim at encouraging greater use of town centre car parks. Do we have a date for this, for when this will come back to committee?
The date is, we are just confirming the minutes are factually correct, please. We're not adding extra items or anything. This is what actually happened at that meeting, correct? Councillor Mrs James.
Well, I pick up on what Viv just said there. I'd quite like to know, in writing, you don't have to tell us now, when we will receive that report, if we could have confirmation of when that will be coming to us. But the other point that I would like to raise, and it's raising what Martin said, is that I'm very concerned that we had a meeting on the 19th of September that was cancelled. We seem to have lots of meetings that are cancelled, and tonight's agenda is enormous, and we are not going to get through it. But I also want to know, where has the climate change paper gone? It's just vanished, and I don't know where that has gone. It's not in the forward plan now. So,
Councillor, that's been brought up.
thank you. So if I could have that in writing, please.
Councillor Keating.
Thank you. Why are meetings cancelled without consultation with the members of the committee?
General information. If we're drawing people out to a meeting, which involves cost and officers and everything else, we hope there'll be sufficient agenda items on the meeting to justify it. The actual definition of justify is difficult to understand, but I hope you understand it. We don't wish to draw people out for a meeting that's not justified. My apologies. I wish to carry on with this agenda. We have a very long agenda tonight. Do we please have a proposer and seconder for the minutes that we're looking at under this agenda item? Councillor Keating.
Thank you. We've only got a long agenda for a huge long meeting because the last meeting was cancelled. We would have been better off with 2 scheduled shorter meetings. Thank you.
Proposer, please. Councillor Reid. Seconder. Councillor Court. All those in favour of the minutes? Thank you. Anybody against? It's carried. We now move on to item 8, member and public participation on issues contained within the agenda. I will slightly wander here. I believe we have people in the room tonight that maybe not familiar with what's going on. People round the table are elected ward councillors, officers from the borough, officers from the county, well, it could be officers from anywhere. Other councillors sat on there, and other officers as well. There's a pressman at the front there somewhere, and the public. I welcome you all here. Because it is my belief that the majority of people in the audience are for the D-side paper, I propose bringing paper C, which is the D-side paper, first on the agenda before paper B, which is presentation of adult social care. I apologise to the people that maybe are interested in the other paper, but I don't wish to keep people here for a long time if they don't wish to be here. Once the paper's over, you're very welcome to stay for the whole lot, but I would like to get the D-side one over first. Standing invitation to relevant portfolio holders to represent reports of their activities. I believe we have Councillor Cassie Offleton, a portfolio holder there. We will have Councillor Robert Donnell shortly. Any other portfolio holders? Referrals from other committees or the council. Item 10. Now, item 10 is on the agenda because this is the first meeting after the council, when the full council meeting wanted us to look at this. So I'm requesting that this committee supports me in that this comes back to this committee with officer reports at the earliest convenience, which will realistically be January, because item 10 in itself is a massive item. Councillor James.
Thank you. If it is going to come back, then I think we need to make sure that what we're going to get back as a report, and I would very much welcome, in relation to the emotional and socially rented and council housing, that we look at B, E and F. There's a link between the three, and when it comes back as a report, can I ask that we ask our partners in housing maybe if they would come along to that meeting and take part in the meeting with us?
I'm more than happy to invite our partners to attend alongside with us for those items, yes.
Thank you. So I take it the committee is happy for that to come back with officer papers to be properly discussed. I can see that being quite a long meeting in itself. Well, we'll see if there's snow. 2 foot of snow. Item 11. Issues referred to by the Cabinet, none. This is where we change the agenda slightly and go to item 13, which will be followed by item 12. Item 13 is the Hampshire County Council's proposal for the closure of Deeside Care Home for the Elderly. Report by the Head of Community Services. Wards affected, all wards, although it's particularly one ward that it's in, obviously. Take a seat, and I'm just going to... We have 2 officers from the County Council turn up tonight, a Ruth Dixon and a Peter Rush. Ruth Dixon, which is the Deputy Director of Adult Services. Thank you very much. And I'll hand it over to you to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ruth Dixon. I am Deputy Director in Adult Services with Hampshire County Council, and I'm the Senior Social Worker responsible for delivery of care and support across the whole county for everybody, whether they've got disability needs or they're older people. And I'm here today to present the briefing on the proposed closure of residential homes in the county. We're consulting on the closure of 4 residential homes, but in particular I'm going to talk today about the proposed closure of Deeside. I'd just like to apologise. We did a public meeting on Monday evening, and a number of people here may have already heard some of the things that I'm going to say, but I'll try and keep to the point and make sure that I'm not prolonging this too much. The first question really is, why have we got to this situation? And this is because social care is changing. It's not just changing in Hampshire, but it is changing right across the country. But in particular, we have an ageing population in Southampton, and the numbers of people who are living longer and needing more support are coming to adult services with quite a wide range of different needs. But more importantly, I think, than an older population that is growing, what we're also experiencing is that older people have different expectations these days to the ones of previous generations. People want much more choice, they want much more control over their lives, and certainly want more choice and control about the sort of support that's offered to them towards the end of their lives. What we're experiencing in adult social care is that more and more older people, some of whom have really complex needs, are choosing to stay in their own homes. And we're seeing people staying in their own homes for much longer periods than we have experienced historically. And they're also choosing, when staying in their own home is not viable any longer, they're choosing a range of different alternative forms of support, one of which is extra care housing. So what we're seeing is a change in the demand for the sorts of services that we are able to offer. We are seeing the demand for standard residential care in Hampshire decreasing, and we are seeing demand for new services like extra care provision on the increase. We're also seeing a massive increase in the number of people who want support to stay at home. What we're also finding is that when people do need the sort of institutional care that residential and nursing care offers, they're coming to us much later in life with far more complex needs than the services were designed for. So people are coming to us later in life, often with a combination of mental health and physical health needs, and are staying for much shorter periods of time in that sort of care. They're coming at the end of their life for the support they need at that period in their lives. What I want to emphasise is this is a consultation process, but we are wanting to modernise our services, and the proposal, and it is a proposal, is to close Deeside residential home and seek permission to recycle the value of the site to build a new extra care assisted living scheme in Basingstoke. And at the public meeting on Monday, Councillor Perry reinforced the view that any monies released from the sale of that site would be reinvested in the Basingstoke area. I can't emphasise too strongly that this is a consultation and we are listening. Nothing has been decided yet, and a full public consultation has been taking place since the 29th of July, and it runs until the 18th of October. If the proposals are taken forward, then residents and their families will have a choice of options to move on to in the local area with the support of a dedicated care manager. The final proposals will be taken back to Councillor McNair Scott, who's our Executive Member for Adult Social Care, along with a detailed report on the consultation results. The final decision will be made on the 27th of November. Sorry, I haven't been changing the slides. Next slide. So why Deeside? Deeside was built in 1965 and cannot meet the needs of future older people. The rooms are small, the corridors are very narrow, and the layout is very poor, and it makes it hard to support people who have physical and mobility needs with any sort of privacy and dignity. The building is a real challenge to the delivery of care, but I just need to emphasise that the quality of care that we're managing to continue to deliver in the building at the moment is of good quality, and we are providing good quality care. But to continue to provide that care in that building becomes more and more challenging. So we want to see modern alternatives. The County Council is investing £45 million in extra care assisted living schemes, with 4 new schemes proposed to be built in Basingstoke, Petersfield, Lyndhurst and Romsey. We're also supporting more and more people to live at home, and particularly investing in the use of such things as telecare and adaptations to people's homes. We are investing in what we call reablement services. This is a new way of providing home care support that maximises people's independence and supports them after a time of crisis to regain skills and confidence that they might have had, say, before a hospital admission or after a fall or other crisis in the home. And we are investing in building extensions on other Hampshire County Council homes. In particular, we're building an extension on Oak Ridge, which is in Basingstoke, and at West Home in Winchester. The extension at Oak Ridge work is underway with the extension of Oak Ridge at the moment. Oak Ridge is 4 miles away from Deeside, and the completion of the extension works is due in the summer of 2014, that's the summer of next year. That extension will provide 10 ensuite rooms, which will form a specialist dementia unit and an extensively refurbished communal area. There is also opportunity for further extra care assisted living scheme, which will enhance the capacity in Basingstoke to support older people with high support needs. As I've said, the site value of Deeside will be reinvested into the proposed development. There is residential and nursing home capacity across Basingstoke and its area. Hampshire County Council commissions nursing and residential care for older people in 9 independent sector homes, providing a total of 454 beds in the area. We also have Newman Court, the new build extra care development in the town, opened in February 2012. It has the following facilities: 64 units, 30 of which are shared equity, and they are mainly 2-bedroom. It has restaurant, hairdressing facilities and an internet suite for public use. It has good communal accommodation for residents, and it also has a day service, a service that was re-provided from a residential home where it was previously hosted. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Peter Rush, who's now going to just talk a little bit about what extra care is and what the benefits of it are.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ruth. My name's Peter Rush. I'm the Extra Care Strategic Commissioning Manager for Hampshire County Council. So my role in this is I'm behind our strategic plans to try and develop and offer opportunities in extra care housing all the way across the county. So if I can, I thought I'd take a bit of time to explain exactly what we mean by extra care, because it is, whilst it's not a new concept across the country, most of the local authorities in England have developed extra care schemes. In Hampshire, we do only have 4 extra care schemes, and so I think it is important that people understand what we're talking about. We're not talking about sheltered housing. I think that's the first thing that we need to lay to rest. In Basingstoke and Dean area, there is quite an extensive mix of traditional sheltered housing, which in the past has had wardens. Now it's mainly moved to a mobile warden system with people relying on alarms, that's been provided both by the 2 main registered providers and a range of other charities and private providers in the area. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is new, purpose-built, specifically designed accommodation, which has on-site staff presence. There are staff there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, so that it can respond to people's care needs as they arise. The second thing that I want to emphasise about it, we've looked and we've learnt the lessons of developing sheltered housing over the years. We've looked at our own in-house residential care homes in terms of looks at the facilities, and the key thing that we've identified is that we need to make this accommodation both flexible and also attractive, and a place that people want to move into. So we offer a range of 1 and 2 bed apartments within the developments. The smallest apartment will be 40 to 45 square metres. That compares to 12 square metres, which is the minimum size that people get often in residential care homes. All of the apartments have ensuite facilities, so we will no longer have the situation that we have in some of our residential care homes where individuals have to queue to use the toilets because there aren't facilities in each apartment. The other thing, the buildings are specifically designed so they are fully accessible to all residents who need it, whether people have got physical disabilities or whether people are suffering from dementia as well. So on the physical disability side, all the corridors are wide enough so that 2 buggies can pass each other in the corridors. They also have handrails down for people who aren't in a buggy but need assistance walking along. There was also a buggy store, where people can put the larger buggies. I was at Newman Court, the scheme that you've got in Basingstoke, last week, and I was in the buggy store and they were complaining that it wasn't big enough. There were 23 buggies in there being charged up when I was there, and there were further buggies being charged up in the corridors and people's rooms, which to me demonstrates how it's meeting that need. On the dementia side, because we're starting a building from scratch, we can make sure that all the latest thinking is incorporated into it. We can make sure that appropriate floor coverings are put in, that the colour shading on walls, between the walls and the doors, are such that any confusion is minimised. We can also make sure there are no dead ends, and all of those things we can design out as far as possible. And in developing our design principles in Hampshire, we're heavily involved nationally in the Dementia and Housing Working Group, which was established by the Department of Health for this purpose last year. So we're basically saying that the schemes that we are now proposing in terms of extra care will not just be fit for purpose in 2013, but will enable us to meet the needs of the changing needs of older people over the next 20 to 30 years. As I say, it's not just us that's looked at extra care, but we've actually sat down and we've looked at a whole number of benefits that we see moving, and when I say we see, this is as the result of extensive consultation that we've done over the last few years. First of all, it provides a safe environment in which people can remain independent. As Ruth said, increasingly people are making a choice that they wish to remain independent as long as possible. For a number of people, it gets to a stage where they can no longer maintain that independence in what has been their family home, but we believe that extra care provides that opportunity where they can remain independent in a different environment for longer. The second point is it enables couples to remain longer. Unfortunately, Hampshire has been in the situation over a period of years where when the needs of a couple varies, it has been the situation that we've not been able to meet their needs in the same situation, and couples have been separated after a lifelong marriage. So we see that that is a great opportunity. The third point that I've got there is increased financial autonomy. If somebody moves into a residential care home and they are in receipt of state benefits, and we pay, and Hampshire County Council is responsible for them, all their money is taken apart from £22.60 a week that they're left to provide for themselves on. Their meals are provided, but they're only left with £22.60 for toiletries, for clothes, for buying any presents or anything they may want to for their family. In extra care, individuals get to keep the whole of their pension. The rent is paid for if either from people who can afford it themselves in the rented side, or if people are entitled to state benefits, then they receive the rent through housing benefit. The pension is then their own. Yes, they have to provide their food, but we believe that that all assists in developing financial autonomy and enabling people to maintain their independence. We also think it's important that within the extra care scheme, people either have security of tenure, so when the time comes, it's up to them that they move out, either through a secure tenancy with a registered provider, a housing association, or through owning the flat. And finally, we're very careful about where we locate extra care schemes, and that's why we are not looking to relocate a new extra care scheme on the site of Deeside. Over the years, we've extensively consulted with older people's groups across the county and asked them what they think is important in terms of location for an extra care facility to enable them to remain active. And they've identified access to a post office, a bank, a local shop, a supermarket, public transport, places of worship, entertainment, library. And those are the things that we take into account when we locate an extra care scheme, because we want it to remain as part of the community. We've also looked at national research that has taken place on this, and as the note at the bottom says, 2011, so it's fairly recent research. The International Longevity Centre, which is based in Manchester, identified those positive outcomes, that people living in extra care are less likely to be hospitalised than those living in the wider community, that they will also experience fewer falls. So we believe that with the positive outcomes that it's identified through this independent research and what we found locally, that extra care offers the way forward. As Ruth said, this process has been subject to extensive consultation. We've had a whole series of one-to-one meetings with residents. There have been the public meeting here and tonight's meeting, and public meetings and other meetings with major stakeholders and elected members right across Hampshire. The consultation does close tomorrow, and we are conscious of the fact that we're only coming here tonight. So what we are saying is, if members of this committee, after they've heard the presentation that we've just done now and the questions and answers, if members of this committee, apart from the official response that you will be making as Basingstoke and Dean, if you want to make comments and you aren't able to get them in to us by tonight, then we will consider any contributions that you wish to make that we hear next week, that you send in to us next week. So finally, that's just, we've got on the presentation, as I say, apologies, but it is the closing date now, and then finally we move to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a list in front of me of people who want to ask questions. If there's anybody in the audience who hasn't actually contacted committee services, put the name on the list. I someone in the next while, if they could contact, there's a councillor, Cathy Austin, down there or something, because unless they make it obvious, I will stick to the list that I've already got. Right, first, I have 2 ward councillors for the ward that Deeside's in. It would be normal to only offer them 2 minutes, and I'm offering them both 4 minutes. Everybody else is 2 minutes. However, as I've said, I intend to be flexible. I don't wish to cut people off if there's actual genuine points coming out. So the first speaker is Councillor Robert Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members, county officers, and thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful to you and the committee for allowing this debate on this very important matter. We can all think of issues that we hold dear, that we see as critical to the well-being of our loved ones, that we see as a cornerstone of a caring society, and that we want to protect as a service for the benefit of the most vulnerable in our local community. I have been the Borough Council for the ward in which Deeside sits for the past 7 years. It's not South Ham. In all that time, I can think of few issues that have been more important than this in terms of promoting and protecting a way of life for a group of elderly residents who are to a very high degree dependent on not just sensitive professional nursing care, but on our common community compassion. My views are well known to the County Council, the relatives, the press, and to some members and officers of this council. I have pressed for this debate by Basingstoke and Dean at this committee, despite the fact that this proposal is clearly the responsibility of the County Council as the service provider. As a council, we are in the business of looking after our residents in a myriad of ways, especially those who may be exposed to the level and depth of change in their lives that this proposed closure would bring about. We must be sensitive to the profound consequences that will surely flow from Deeside being closed in terms of the health, well-being, sense of safety and security, certainty and emotional comfort that Deeside has offered its residents for a very long time. We must keep in the forefront of our minds the harm and potentially tragic consequences that such a move may mean for an elderly person, especially one who is suffering from that most debilitating and heartbreaking condition of dementia. And what about the families of these vulnerable citizens? They have already had to see their loved ones reduced by their age and medical state by this most distressing and inevitable process. To add to this grief, are we really saying that the next best thing for them is the upheaval of their elder relatives to a new and strange environment, breaking what might be tenuous links to some of us, but to them critically stabilising bonds of friendship and reassurance, both professional and personal affection, certainty and practical professional care? I do not ignore the fact that resources are stretched and models of care change as society develops new ways of working with, supporting and caring for our people in residential settings. Residential care is hugely expensive, and there always will be a need to look at alternative models that are in line with current research and thinking, not to mention budgets. But proposals like this one are, in my view, not the right way forward. Equally valid research also shows that disruption, distress, uncertainty and change are factors that not only shorten lives in this age and medical status group, but also result in an extremely unhappy, confused and anxious life for those who are exceptionally vulnerable by virtue of their dementia. I had a 20-year career as Divisional Director of Social Services and have some understanding of the issues here. In my time, I have led changes in service delivery, which have inevitably been driven by financial and budget imperatives, as well as changing concepts of service provision. In my experience, they do not necessarily lead to service level improvements, and most important of all, the human costs have frequently been very high indeed. I urge the County Council to reconsider this proposal to close Deeside. Any decision must have at its heart the well-being of those residents, their families, and of course their immediate dedicated professional care team. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the sake of clarity, I'll have it on record. The paper in front of us is here because of Councillor Robert Taylor's request. So that's why we're here tonight on this one. Thank you. The next speaker is Peter Rich. Sorry, my apologies. Well, sorry, my apologies. It is normal practice to take the councillors first. Okay. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I actually concur with what's been said, but what I want to put a point across is this council in particular, and Hampshire County Council, I assume, not that I've been on it, talk about communities. And Deeside's been there since 1965. And the one thing that's opened my eyes on this campaign has been that how well it is run, how well the people are treated, and the community around it. You've got a shelter scheme sitting next to it where people progress, sadly enough, into these places. And now we're talking about doing away with it. We'll move them over to, what was it, Oak Ridge, was it? Oh, it's only 4 miles away. You know, this is the whole thing. It's like cattle, isn't it? I'm sorry to say, we're not looking after our people. We've got a really good scheme there. Yes, it does need some money spent on it. There's no ifs or buts. I think the county could have spent that money a long time ago and we wouldn't have been having this conversation. But there you go. But the way forward, to my way of thinking, would be to actually scrap this and actually put money in. And the other thing I'm pleased about was our portfolio for the Basingstoke and Dean is here tonight. And I'm sorry to say, and you'll most probably hear it later off of some of the residents and that the portfolio for Hampshire has not been seen. Now it's quite interesting that our portfolio has been to Deeside, had a look round. She's made her own opinions, but the portfolio for Hampshire we can't even talk to, not even the families. We had a public meeting Monday. And I would have thought the least she could do, even if she didn't want to speak, was actually be there and listen to what's going on, to feel what the feeling is of the public in that area, and then make a decision, because by writing it down does not put across the feeling of the people of Basingstoke. And the other thing that is missing is Basingstoke is one of the biggest areas in Hampshire now, because we have no Southampton, no Portsmouth. We should be spending a lot more money there. You know, Deeside could actually be extended if I was honest, but I think I might be putting a finger out to that one. But to me, it's just an absolute nonsense the way things are going at this moment. The families are upset because they cannot see anybody really listening. They say they are, they're writing it down, but the portfolio holder isn't there. I know they've had some contact with her, to be fair, but not a public meeting where people can get up and speak. And I'm glad we had this meeting. I'm glad Robert called it. But I'm also glad we had the public meeting on Monday, because on Monday a lot of people went to that meeting who are not here tonight because they feel that is the place they can actually vent their feelings, whereas here is a little bit more formal. And I think I'll leave it at that, because I know what's coming next, and you'll hear some sad stories and some things that are going on which weren't answered on Monday by the officers, I'm afraid, or the leader of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just some clarification from Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't expecting Newman Court to be mentioned this evening, so I should just clarify to the committee. I've checked with the officer, who says it's absolutely fine. But I have done a couple of presentations for my company at Newman Court in the past. So I thought just for completeness I'll mention that now.
Thank you. We have two other councillors, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Tilbury, Whether you come up now or at the end, it's up to you. Right, thank you. Could Peter Rich please come up? Apologies, this is the correct time now, thank you. It's the big button, the wide one.
Yeah, right, sorry. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Basically, I've only got 2 minutes, so I will hurry up. Anna McClare Scott, I believe that she should not be on this council where she makes a decision. The simple reason is she has conflict of interest as regards of her husband. Her husband works for Helical Bar, who are in partnership with Urban Renaissance Villages Limited. Now, Urban Renaissance Villages, if you don't know, are specialists in extra care homes and retirement homes. And as far as I'm concerned, she's got a connection there. It's called conflict of interest, and it basically means anyone who's involved. Councillor Reid said earlier that she's got no conflict of interest and she's prepared to carry on and listen to what's going on. So she knows exactly what I'm saying. You know exactly what I'm talking about because you actually said it yourself. Basically, she shouldn't be on the committee, and as far as I'm concerned, she should stand down. That's it.
Thank you. That is news to me. Would the officer like... Did you want to actually say...
Press it again.
More than happy to respond on that. We are talking about developing, and Hampshire County Council is talking about developing affordable extra care housing, which is housing for social rent, affordable rent, shared ownership or shared equity. Urban Renaissance Village do not do affordable housing for older people. They have one development in Hampshire at Bramshot Place where properties market between £300,000 and £500,000 each. That is not the market that we are developing for. Secondly, we have an established framework of 5 registered providers, previously known as registered social landlords, who will be developing the majority of all our new extra care developments. Urban Renaissance Villages would not qualify and are not on that, and Helical Bar have got no relationship with any of the providers who we are working with.
Can I answer that? Can I answer that? Because I was the one who said this, I want to answer it.
The other officers
My
asked to
time's
speak.
running out, so...
That's all right, I'll let you respond. The other
Right.
officer asked to speak.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to raise the point that was raised with Councillor Perry on Monday. Yes, I know. And he has heard the allegations that you've made, and he undertook, and I know that he has already taken it up with the County Council Monitoring Officer, who is the person responsible for legal probity in the organisation, so that is being looked into.
Can I say something now, please? You mentioned about Urban Renaissance Villages Limited. Now, a lot of people in this room don't know about that, but it seems you do know. At the end of the day, you're not telling me that there's no conflict of interest, even though I'm not blaming the guy and I'm not saying he's done anything wrong, but he's still part of an organisation which actually has the opportunity to build extra care homes and retirement homes. And therefore, there is a conflict of interest, and therefore she should not be sitting on that panel because that's her husband.
On this issue...
You can put as many funny faces as you like, mate, but I'm telling you.
But on this issue, I take the view that we have specialist officers looking at it. I've been assured by the officer here that the correct officer at the County Council is looking at it. To me, that is quite adequate, quite suitable. If there are any wrongdoing, we have our own officers in this borough council that we look at. Hence, tonight you've seen 2 or 3 people make declarations that they potentially didn't need to, but they have, to be clear. The County Council has an even stricter view. They have their own officers. So for me, I am content that it stays with the County Council on their system. That's the correct phraseology.
So you don't see that as a conflict of interest then, what I've just said? You're chairman, you can answer that.
I see it as an issue that needs to be looked at.
Even though just what I've just explained, it's still not a conflict of interest in your mind.
I am fresh to this tonight. I do not make instant decisions. I've heard an officer's view. I hope well, I know the office will be able to back it up, and it will be looked into, and it will come back. If it comes back different to what has been said tonight, then there is an issue. If it comes back as normal, there is no issue.
Well, I'd like that minuted, what I've said.
I can assure you it is minuted. This is webcast. It's going out live, and there's the proof up there. And it is also recorded, and you can go back into this meeting several months, certainly several weeks after this meeting. I'm not quite sure how long it's recorded for. Days, sorry. Several days after the meeting. It's available for a few days, and it's available longer if the officers know. Councillor James.
Thank you. Mine's just in relation to the issue. It's a question of the officers. And I don't want to get into the personalities of whether this person has a conflict or not. But what I want to ask is, we've obviously had a big plug tonight for extra care homes, and there's obviously a policy direction that the county are moving towards. I just wondered, I'm not sure what this cabinet member's involvement in all of this is, but there is a clear direction of travel by county towards extra care homes, and I'd like to understand that a bit more. I will ask that later on, and ask some questions. But that's my concern in relation to this issue.
That has been recorded, because I say we are on webcast, and this is recorded, and I'm sure I noticed the officers are taking notes. If I can ask the next speaker, please, Terry Tuxford, to come forward.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Terry Tuxford. I'm a health and safety professional, and both my wife and my family have lived in Basingstoke for at least 4 generations, maybe more. My mother-in-law is a resident of Deeside Care Home. Both her and her late husband Charlie served their country during World War II. They have always worked, paid their taxes, and have had a positive influence on their community in Basingstoke. The closing of Deeside Care Home is predicated on meeting the changing needs of older people to allow them to be more independent longer. However, to achieve this, it needs to evict existing residents from Deeside from their homes to enable Hampshire County Council to sell the land. The current residents of Deeside have missed the opportunity for the extra care proposals, as the majority of them have either dementia or Alzheimer's and will be unable to cope without full-time 24/7 care and be in complete visibility of the carers. Hampshire County Council have stated that they know what is best for these people, and this, in my view, is age discrimination. Age equality is underpinned by human rights, a framework that includes rights set aside by the UN Guiding Principles for Older Persons, dignity, independence, participation, care and self-fulfilment. The Human Rights Act also says that human rights must be enjoyed without discrimination on any grounds. Everyone has the right to respect for his private and family life, his home and his correspondence. There shall be no interference by public authority with the exercise of this right, except such as in accordance with the law and is necessary in a democratic society in the interests of national security, public safety or the economic well-being of the country, for the prevention of disorder of crime, for the protection of health and morals, or for the protection of the rights of freedom of others. I am requesting that this committee debate the human rights issue for our old folk at Deeside and make representation to Hampshire County Council to delay the decision-making process until their legal obligations under the Human Rights Act are fully compliant. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right. Could I ask Nigel Pearce to come up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I was very pleased to see the portfolio's holders' reservations on the proposed closure in section 5 of the paper. So we hope that they will join with the friends, relatives and residents in achieving a more appropriate and cost-effective solution. Hampshire County Council's presentation, which you saw tonight, was given to an extremely well-attended public meeting on Monday, but it lacks substance. And there were claims made there and there were claims made tonight about ageing population, That wasn't quantified. Older people want more choice, says who? More people are choosing to stay in their homes for longer or are choosing alternatives. What's that based on? The demand for residential care is diminishing, an unsubstantiated statistic. The demand for extra care assisted living is increasing. How do we know? When people move to care settings, they have a high level of dependency. Actually, that may well be true, but where else do we support elderly people who suffer from dementia? Secondly, we don't seem to have seen a business case. And on Monday we were told that the costs did exist, but as yet, we've not seen them, and we have no idea whether they stand up to scrutiny. However, even if a financial case could be established, it would have to be considered in the light of the residents' needs, which at Deeside means they want to stay where they are. Deeside has a significant number of residents who have dementia. They couldn't possibly go into extra care establishments. Reablement will not happen for them. If they could, they wouldn't be in Deeside now. In fact, they would need considerably more beds than the 10 extra beds that are suggested being added at Oakridge. If extra care is used in any event for other people, neither the borough nor the county will have the levels of control they have now. We know this to be true from other services which have been privatised. And I'm sad to say that this proposal looks like another example of a dogmatic attack on public services. We used to call it privatisation, and just look what happened there. Uncontrolled energy prices, transport prices and water costs spinning. And we would like to think this proposal may be different.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Could a Lynn Rich please come? I'm hoping that the county officers will do the answers at the end. So, could you sit there? The officer's happy to answer now.
Okay. I'm not sure if I got your specific question right, but on the unsubstantiated evidence, we've done a lot of consultation in terms of the strategy and the policy and direction of travel that we want to modernise our services, and that has involved talking to large numbers of older people, so direct consultation, engaging older people's forums right across the county. So a lot of qualitative evidence has been taken about the future shape of services that should be developed to support older people. In addition, I am, as I said at the beginning, the operational manager responsible for all the budgets and the delivery of services across the county council, and I can absolutely say, if you look at the change in the demand that is on our resources within the county council, we can evidence at least 5% fall in the requirement for residential care across the county council. We've seen an increase in demand for nursing care. I think it's important to be clear that our residential care homes don't provide nursing. We don't have nurses in those homes. When people are coming into that sort of care, they're coming in with nursing needs. So we have now seen an increase in nursing, hence the need to increase the nursing capacity in the system. And we have seen an exponential huge demand for domiciliary care services, that's services at home, and that is evidenced by the demand on the budget. Additionally, we've opened a number of extra care facilities already across the county, Newman Court being one of them, Juniper Court in Gosport, Lion Oak Court in Andover, and I've missed one, Campbell Place in Fleet. The demand for the places in those units has far outstripped the provision that we've got, and we've got waiting lists for those places. So we're confident that we can substantiate the direction of travel in terms of our policy.
Mr. Pearce, you wanted a supplementary?
I do. I'm sort of struggling with that because that's new information, and it hasn't, it's not been made clear. When you're giving a public consultation, you expect all that information to be available, and it hasn't answered the question about a business case. That still has not been answered. I don't know how many of this committee have been to Deeside, but I have, and it's well run, it's clean, it's a pleasant environment, and the residents are happy. The staff at Deeside have already received notices of potential redundancy, and consultation that appears to have been poorly managed. It was repeated on Monday that the choice was either redeployment or redundancy. Where are these members of staff likely to get a similar role? Is this just a simple way of further cutting costs through planned redundancies? The more important point here is, why has this consultation even taken place if the decision has not been made? And I suspect that it's been made, and the leader of Hampshire County Council has been quoted on more than one occasion to have allegedly stated he thinks Deeside and the other 3 homes should be closed. What we have here is a very poor attempt by the county to save money on the quick, be making decisions before the consultation is completed, and I think it's shameful, and I urge this committee to join with the campaign and stand against the closure.
Thank you, Mr. Pearce. I now call Lynn Rich up, please. It's the big button.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm really just going to repeat what I said on Monday night as well at the public meeting, and that's regarding the particular residence home of Newman Court, which I understand is a new extra care housing. I actually spoke to the manager there. I explained, I didn't try and hide anything. I said who I was and why I was phoning, and that I was concerned that my elderly mother-in-law, who doesn't have dementia actually, she's physically frail, what in her opinion was it going to be suitable for very physically frail and dementia people, and she said no, in her opinion it wasn't, and it transpires that an awful lot of them are left for hours alone, because they have their own key, own front door, and very much the emphasis is on independent living, which is great for some people, but the majority of people from Deeside do have dementia and it is not suitable. And she also said a lot of them have catheters and they too are left alone for hours on end. They may have 15 minutes in the morning, help 15 minutes at lunchtime, 15 minutes in the evening, but apart from that, very much left to their own devices. And I said, what happens if they sort of wander around in the vestibule or something like that? She said, or even worse, go outside. And she said, unfortunately, we're not allowed to touch them, which is of a great concern, because the majority of people there do not even know what day of the week it is, let alone be able to remember to take a key. So that is a really, really big concern of mine. I just wonder, especially Peter Rush, who happened to champion the extra care. And don't get me wrong, I do think it's a great idea for some people, but certainly not for the residents of Deeside. So if I could just perhaps have your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to come back on the specifics there. You mentioned about the example of somebody having 3 15-minute visits a day. The whole point of extra care is the flexibility of the care that can be delivered. We have individuals in extra care schemes who have up to 35 hours a week of one-to-one personal care. So it's a case of, if somebody's assessed care needs require them to have that level of intervention and that level of one-to-one care, then that is delivered to them. That adds up to a lot more than the 15 minutes a week. I'm not sure who you spoke to, whether you spoke to the housing scheme manager or whether you spoke to the care manager there. She's the housing manager, she's not the care manager, she is not responsible for the care services. She works for the landlord. We procured separately, so we have a separate organisation there delivering the care and support, because we wanted a specialist organisation. Amy, as I say, is the manager who works for Saxon Weald. She does not work for Sanctuary Care. She is not responsible for the Sanctuary Care staff, and she would not know the hours of support of care that they are delivering. I don't know. I'm not here to answer for Amy. What I'm here to point out is how extra care schemes work. In addition to the one-to-one hours which I talked about, which is based on people's individual care needs as determined by a care manager through the assessment process, which is something that is applied to people whether they're living in their own home or they're living in an extra care scheme. There are also a range of day activities organised for all residents there. A large number of residents within the extra care scheme will not spend time within their own rooms. If they They can stay in their rooms if they want to, and they will be looked in on by care workers, and there's also alarm. But there's also a range of activities both within the scheme, within the communal lounge, and people make sure that they are down. There's something specific, an individual specifically employed to make sure that they all come down at least once a day for their meals. But as Ruth also pointed out in her presentation, there is also a Hampshire County Council run day centre on site within there for people who need additional care and support throughout the day.
Excuse me,
There's
the webcast only works if the person speaking has a light on. Then it's helpful to people at home.
There are alarms. There are alarms in every flat. Has an alarm port in the kitchen, in the living room, in each of the bedrooms, and in the bathroom. And for individuals who struggle to reach the port alarm, we organise wristbands so people can press the button on that, or people can have the pendant around their neck so that staff can be called. In addition to the planned care, there is also hours within the care contract for unplanned care, and as I say, there are staff on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to respond to people's care needs, whether they're planned care within people's care plan or outside of that.
I don't wish to cut anybody off, but we are running on a tight schedule. I appreciate what Lynn's just said. Could we have, please? Could we have John Kearney come up to speak, please? Thank you.
Hello everyone. Now, I listened to the three speakers who introduced this. What they said was very, very interesting and very good, and I think they actually believed it. But you know, I'm 75 and I'll soon be 76, and I have no desire to go into a care home. And the majority of people who go into care homes have no desire to be there. So all this about, well, they're leaving it to later, or leaving it to this, and they want this choice, and they want that choice, it's nonsense. Now, let us look at the sale of Deeside. It's not a large chunk of land. You're not going to make a lot of money out of selling it, and the idea that you're going to have a windfall and be able to build other residential places and give better choice, it's nonsense. Give me the statistics, as someone said. Where are the figures? Give me those. Contradict me. Now, as far as Deeside is concerned, it has to be closed down because it's not got any ensuite rooms. Well, there's a way I could agree with this. If indeed the hygiene of the residents is being ignored, if the hygiene of the residents is so bad that we need ensuite care, then close the home. But I can tell you, and I've visited that home for 10 years, the hygiene is a very high standard. So don't put this forward, well, they're not up to date, as a reason for closing that home. The other point was, I mentioned the word last week about institutionalisation. Now, I didn't want to offend anybody at another home, but there is a rule here. The smaller the unit, then the better the personal care. And the larger the unit, the less is the personal care. And there was a lady here a minute ago speaking about that. You see, the thing about Deeside, it's built for purpose. The manager in her office is not more than 1 minute away from any resident. And because it's small and compact, the staff are always close to the residents. That's why the people are here tonight. That small compactness, that smallness, gives them confidence that their elderly parent will be looked after. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever for closing Deeside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll ask Kevin Kerr to come forward, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not really used to this, but I want to take you back to 1964. 1964. Know what happened in Southam? D-side was getting built. You know how I know that? Because the man who was the clerk of works signed my petition. 8 weeks. I've been in the town centre campaigning. I don't normally do this. I'm quite shy. I'm really shy when it comes to things like this. I know it was built in 64. The man signed my petition. 1964, what happened? My mother-in-law, Sheila, arrives from the Big Smoke, Peckham, somewhere like that, where her husband, George, and her 3 kids, they're going to work at, George is going to work at Sainsbury's. Where do they move to? Pinkerton Road. Hopefully, people around the table know where Pinkerton Road is. I know it well, 93, that's where I used to pick my wife up when we were courting, I think they call it. Now, D-side, anybody knows D-side, it's 3 minutes away from there, yeah? What happens? Sheila, great lady, I have a lot of time for her, which I should, even though she's my mother-in-law. But what happened to her? She's had a host of things. She's manic depressant. She was originally up in the other place that was shut, Park Pruitt. She was in there. She goes to Parklands. Next thing, what happens? She's in Whitchurch, in a home in Whitchurch. Now my wife, my lovely wife over there, she fought tooth and nail to get her to somewhere local. It was a pain for us to go, really, although we're going, a real pain, going out to Whitchurch, and she didn't like it out there. And funny, somebody was talking about cleanliness, she wasn't clean, and she was paying £750 a week for this out in Whitchurch. Terrible. We get her a D-side, she's comfortable, the family's comfortable. And I tell you what, talk about community. The community have come out, and they've been signing my petition. We handed it over to that lady there on Monday night. 4,000. I didn't want to get it to her, she'll tell you that. I want to hang on to it because it's my personal petition. And the amount of people, because I've run out of time, sorry, the amount of people that signed it, the good people at Basingstoke, the good shoppers at Basingstoke, they were frightened of me when I started off. They thought I was selling things, they wanted money. How can they sell anything? How can they sell Iron Brew to Scottish people? Basingstoke, honestly, Basingstoke is my home. I love Basingstoke. I will not move anywhere else. I don't want to see. I love it. I love Southam. 25 years I've lived in Basingstoke. I want everybody in the room, everybody at the back, the man from the Gazette, to support keeping this place open. Because I tell you what, young or old, middle-aged, they all come and they signed this petition. I had all walks of life. I can't believe the amount of feelings that was on the street, and it's terrible because I could rant all night. Well, no rant, but it's terrible. We wanted to hand it over to this lady Anna McNair Scott, and I'm not going to labour the point. It's really sad that she didn't turn up on Saturday. I was actually disgusted. I had to hand it over to a UKIP guy, Ray Finch. I don't even know him. I don't even know this guy. He's got nothing to do with it. Anna McNair Scott, where were you when we wanted you? When the people of Basingstoke wanted you, she wasn't there. And I tell you what, there's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of feeling on that. They think the councillors aren't doing anything for the people of Basingstoke. That's what I picked up when I was on the street for this. Anyway, I got to go. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that. Could I call Alan Stone forward, please?
Hello, I am the UKIP guy. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here as the treasurer of the Save D-Side group. What we've shown here is a lot of very emotive conversations from people that actually care about what's happening in their town. What they're doing about this is they're working hard trying to keep what they want in the town here. You guys here are all councillors. You're all elected to serve the people of Basingstoke. 5,000 signatures, which it was more than 4,000. It was 5,000 signatures of local people that want this home to stay open. It's actually your job to keep it open. So I suggest that you all stand and vote for this. This is something that is important to an awful lot more people than those that just signed the petitions. It's important to everybody, especially people of my age group. 20 years' time, I might need homes like D-Side. It's not that far away. So that's all I'm going to say, is these people need support. It's your job to do it. Please do it.
Thank you. I have 2 councillors, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Tilby, still to to speak on paper C. If there's anybody else out there that wishes to speak on paper C, could you please make yourself known to the councillor sitting on the side? Speak to Kathy. Right, Councillor Harvey, please.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Tilbury, I don't mind.
Do you want to take the lady first?
Okay.
Right. Sorry.
If you wish to speak, yes, please come forward.
And I could say why I'm boo to Scott. Just to be clear.
Could you just say your name, please?
Sorry, Teresa Kerr. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a few points about the assisted care on a personal level. Kev, my husband's already mentioned about my mum and the struggle it took me to get her from Whitchurch to Basingstoke. It was adult services that placed mum in Deeside. She lived at Kendall Gardens in Basingstoke, which is a Walden. They've got the bells, they've got the alarms. Mum was constantly phoning ambulances. She suffers from forms of depression. And it was adult services that sat by her bed on her last visit into hospital who suggested for respite care she tries Burr Hill in Whitchurch. She went, she hated it, but it gave the family some kind of rest from the constant barrage of phone calls that mum's up at casualty, etc., etc. Anyway, assisted living didn't suit mum. She had echoes coming out 3 times a day, the care package that look after her. Didn't work. They tried giving her sleeping pills at night to make her sleep so she wouldn't phone the emergency services. That didn't work. Eventually, after my struggle, I got her into Deeside. There, she's clean. She's still not happy, don't get me wrong. She still doesn't want to be, as John mentioned earlier, nobody wants to go into these care homes. But she's safe. I can rest at night. I don't have to worry the phone's going to ring. They look after her. They haven't got a nursing qualification. They don't need it for the residents in Deeside. The residents in there want to be loved. They want to be part of a community. And they want to have somebody there 24/7 who's sitting very much, I hate to say it, in a circle like we all are, with somebody. If they choke, there's somebody there. If they stumble when they get up, there's somebody there to give them a reassuring arm. They won't get that in Newham Court. In Oakridge, there's 9 beds. There's 26, 25 people in Deeside. Where are they going to go? Because if I have to then spend an hour travelling to Chandler's Ford, to Winchester, with the other residents sitting behind me, they lose their community that they're in now. They'll be confused, they'll be frightened. They're already, as Ruth mentioned, I think her name's Ruth, I'm rubbish at names, sorry, they're having one-to-one visits with people. These are elderly, confused, frightened people at the moment. Some of them are really scared. They know what's going on. They don't want to leave. And don't get me wrong, my mum doesn't want to be in there. As far as she's concerned, she'll go anywhere. She doesn't want to be in a care home environment. The family want her there. Adult services want her there. They put her there. And all I'm asking is that these people have the choice to continue the community and the wonderful job that Deeside are doing to look after them. They deserve that from us, and they deserve that from everybody in this room to make sure that they've got it for them and for future generations. Deeside needs new windows. Inside windows are perfectly fine. The outside windows look really bad. Other than that, there's not much else they need. They've already invested the money in new kitchens, chairs, beds. My mum's got a monitor on her bed because she keeps falling. They are there the minute she moves out of bed. A carer or the manager or anybody is there in minutes. I know because I keep throwing my handbag and sitting on the damn bed, and every time I move, everybody arrives as if mum's fallen out of her bed. It works. I don't believe I'll get that in Newham Court.
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off.
No, that's fine. But I just wanted to make that point to you guys.
Right. Thank you for that. I have the only 2 remaining speakers on my list are Councillors Tilbury and Councillors Harvey. Right. Councillor Tilbury, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I won't trying to go over a lot of the ground. I think there's a lot of strong feeling on this because Deeside isn't just a facility for the South and Buckskin area. Residents from Overton have gone there. In fact, a lot of residents from Overton went there when they closed Newman Bassett because it was apparently too small. So I don't know what's going on here because we were told at that time that it was a more suitable facility. So that's why they were going to move them there. And this was just going to be pushed from pillar to post. I think what we're talking about is that a lot of elderly people have a range of different needs. Well, clearly they need a range of different services as well. And this is clearly providing a need. And the other ones may well do that, and so they're probably very good for people it suits. And at the other end, keeping people in their own homes. But there's a bit of a contradiction, I think, what was stated earlier, that, it's sort of extra care is safer than independent living at home. Well, yeah, we know that. That's how often people end up in these residential care homes, is because they've been kept in their own home, and then they fall down the stairs, fall over or whatever, get badly injured, and then have to go into care. Often they have to go into hospital first, but and I think one of the problems with the approach we've had with the care service for a long time is in keeping people in their own home, we're just really pushing them into the NHS because they're becoming injured by staying in their own home. I mean, there are a lot, telecare, there's a lot of things you can do now that are better, the monitors to see if you've fallen over, but they don't always work. And I had a friend of mine recently, who actually managed to break the telecare thing and put it back together themselves, and it didn't actually work then. So when she did fall over, well, that was that. We could go round and round, but at the end of this is all about money, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean, they're not going to save enough money from selling off the site to. It'll disappear in no time. We need facilities like this. It's a good facility, and that's why it was kept open when Newman Bassett was closed. That's what we were told then. I sat on this committee, or whichever one it was it went to at that time, and we went through all this, and we went, don't worry, it won't be a problem. Deeside will solve all the problems, and now they want to close that, but. We keep coming up with, there's an ageing population, so there's going to be more need for these things. We may need other things, and we need other people are living longer and needed extra care and all those sort of things. But there's a range of needs. Not everyone's going to need these facilities, but some people will. And clearly the people who are there are really happy, and the people who, well, maybe not all of them happy from what we just heard, but their family are happy because their family are happy because they're safe. That's the point, and that's what this is all about. What's the alternative? Where would these people go if this care home's closed down? I think that's all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. At the end of the day, Chair, this is about the politics of care and the choices that the Tory County Council are making. We've got a Tory-run borough council with a property portfolio worth 200 million and 150 million in the bank. And we've got a Conservative-run county council with 419 million pounds in its reserves, which they've doubled over the last 3 years, who then want to turn around and close down old people care homes and farm them out to the private sector. We've got a national government who are completely wedded to the private healthcare industry in more ways than one. It's interesting to remember that according to some recent research, there have been 333 separate donations recorded to the Tory party, £8.3 million given to the Conservatives from the private healthcare industry. Two that I want to mention now are the nursing and care home tycoon Dolar Popat, who has given the Conservatives £209,000. Now, he's the founder and chief of the TLC Group, who provides care for the elderly. Now, David Cameron made him appear this year.
Councillor, we are here tonight talking about...
I'm making a statement, Chair. You either listen to it or you don't, but I'm making a statement and you should listen to it.
If it's about Deeside, yes.
Oh, yeah, let me get there. You don't like what I'm saying, do you? Yeah, David Cameron made him appear this year. He gave him £25,000 after the Tory health reforms were announced in July. And let's not forget Andrew Lansley, who's the architect of all of these reforms. He was given £21,000 for his personal office by John Nash, chairman of Care UK. And a senior director of Care UK says that 96% of their business comes from the NHS. So this is about the politics of choices. There is more to do here with selling off local government-run care for the elderly to private companies. And it's about the residents and the families, as you've heard this evening, that are suffering, that are being put at risk, that are being made to hear what they do not want to hear from Hampshire because they don't believe it in the first place. And it is about talking about vulnerable people who cannot come here themselves to defend themselves and say that they want to protect the home they live in, the place they live in, who deserve the dignity and care at this time of their lives. So, Chair, I find it quite immoral that Hampshire County Council, with its resources, is suggesting it's going to close down Deeside. Two councils, us and them, with £800 million in the bank and between us, and we are talking about closing down this much valued and important local care home. It is disgusting, and I would like a response from the officers.
That's the last public speaker, but he does have a supplementary if you wish. If you could answer, please.
I'm just formulating my response. It was a very political statement, and I'm an officer of the county council, so there's a number of things that are difficult for me to answer, and I don't want to engage in a overt political debate. All I can say is that the county council is investing £45 million of new money into the development of the extra care strategy, and the proceeds from Deeside, if the proposal goes through, will contribute to that pot for the development of the new modernised style of service that we want to deliver.
You have a supplementary if you wish.
Thank you. If we're saying that we have this £45 million pot of money for extra care, what it seems to be is that we're taking it away from residential care, we're closing down Deeside to set up something else. So one group of people are being made to suffer in favour of another group because you can't make the budgets balance. But obviously if you've got £45 million there as extra new money, I don't see why you cannot keep Deeside open. There's no reason, if there's new money on the table, that is perfectly legitimate to argue that Deeside can be kept open. The issue I have is the doing away of residential care, and I would like the officers to respond to this in relation to the relationship with extra care, because we've heard about the need of residents, not just for 15 minutes every few elements of the day, but ongoing care. And we've also heard that people running extra care schemes do not believe that they are appropriate places for these residents. So we're hearing conflicting evidence all over. And what I don't want, and I don't want to see this, is that these residents are forced, at the end of the day, into private sector companies, forcing to pay with their savings and God knows what else, but their families trying to keep them in places they can't really afford. Because at the end of the day, these residential care homes are going to get closed down. We're going to wind up with extra care, and it's going to be costly, and it's going to be beyond many people's means. And I don't believe that it is the right option simply to close down residential schemes and have extra care or nursing care, both ends of the scheme. We need something in the middle that meets those particular needs of these particular residents.
A very long supplementary, but thank you. I'll ask the officers if they could encompass, there's quite a few points, if you can just do a summary of that, and then we'll open it to the committee. No, I'm sorry. We are running to a schedule. No. We are discussing Deeside tonight, not other homes, not other sites. Right, I'll now ask the officers to sum up, but please, can everybody bear in mind we're talking about Deeside here tonight? Thank you.
Yes, I will tell you. Yeah, well, I'll try. I think one of the points that I tried to get across is that extra care accommodation isn't, and I think it might address some of the councillors' issues as well. Extra care accommodation isn't suitable for everybody. And we're not suggesting that we're moving the residents of Deeside into extra care, because clearly the needs of people who are now living at Deeside are such that extra care wouldn't meet their needs. We're all the way along, and I tried to describe it on Monday night, is what we're trying to do is provide a range of flexible care options for people that range from support in people's homes through reablement type services for people in a crisis, a level of residential care, so there's still a need for a level of residential care services within that range of option. We need additional nursing care, and extra care is a really important part of that whole spectrum of care that needs to be put in place. So there will be some people, and particularly people who suffer from different forms of dementia, for whom going into extra care is not a viable alternative. Having said that, however, we do know that extra care with the right level of care and support can support people with dementia with quite complex needs. There are legal rules about laying hands on people, but there is also a duty of care, and we can't go around just shepherding and manhandling people willy-nilly just to keep them in a building. And if we have a locked door on somebody, we have to observe the duties of the Mental Capacity Act. But if it is clear to any member of staff or even a member of the public that somebody is wandering and confused, and putting a hand on their elbow and guiding them back to a place of safety, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and I would expect any human being to do that for another person. So I hope that maybe addresses some of the concerns that you have about that. We would, you know,
So, I need to give you a warning, please. This is a proper meeting, being webcast, being recorded. Shouting out without proper authority, without going through the chair, and without being on the paper is not acceptable. That is your warning.
Okay, I will try and address a number of the issues that have been raised, and a lot of them we've already captured in terms of the consultation, so we have heard a lot of the points that have been raised this evening, and they will be fed back to Councillor McNair-Scott in the response to the consultation. I just want to pick up taking this decision about closing residential care is probably one of the most difficult decisions I would be asked to make in my career. I've done some difficult things as a social worker, but as a manager, this is probably one of the most difficult things. And I sometimes reflect, when I do get into a difficult corner about some of this, is some predecessor of mine several years ago, or tens of years ago, hadn't made some difficult decisions about buildings, we'd probably be still living in Victorian style buildings with outside loos. At some stage, a building comes to the end of its life, and you have to look at how you can re-provide the services in a different way. And that's the case with Deeside. We are at the moment be able, and I have to take my hat off to the staff that are in Deeside, we are able to maintain a quality of care that we are proud of. As the building constraints become more and more difficult because the needs of the people going into the home change, then it becomes more and more difficult to maintain the quality and level of care that we want to do. And people's expectations are changing. There aren't enough toilets in that building, and people do have to queue to use the toilets, and older people who queue to use the toilets, you may not have done, I have, they don't queue. If they have to wait, they have an accident. That people have challenged me about the need for ensuite. Clearly, people in nursing homes need assistance to use ensuite, but that having ensuite means they have a toilet there for their use when they need it, and assistance is provided for them to use it. And it's a much more hygienic and safe arrangement, as well as a practical, accessible arrangement for individuals. I do believe what I'm saying. There is a real conflict between catering for the needs of an older population going into the future and how we manage the care and support for individuals who are currently in that home. I absolutely recognise that, and I hear it loud and clear. that if it was my mum in that home, I'd probably have some real concerns about the whole set of proposals. However, and I'd like to just kind of pick up on the issue that was raised right at the beginning about the risk of harm to those individuals. There have been experiences in the past where homes have closed and people have been moved and people have been harmed dreadfully, and I absolutely acknowledge that. We in Hampshire County Council have got experience of moving people. We move people regularly through the normal day-to-day business of managing care. People's care needs change and people move from residential care to nursing care. People move from residential care into hospital and back again. People move through respite for temporary stays back home again. Moving people is something that we are really good at. We've taken the learning from where things have gone dreadfully wrong, and in particular we've taken the learning from good practice. Birmingham University did an excellent piece of research several years ago looking at how to effectively support older people in the process of change and moving from their homes, and we are expert at doing that, and that is done by maintaining an absolutely relentless focus on the individual and their needs, and making sure that they are involved where they have capacity to be involved, and their families are involved in any decision that's made about them, and the quality and in-depth care planning that goes into ensuring an adequate move is something that I'm quite proud of in Hampshire County Council. We recognise that a lot of people in Deeside have local allegiance to that home, and we will work with families if the decision is made to close that home to ensure that local options are available. Oakridge, we're talking about 10 new beds in that provision, but there will be other space in that home if we need it. There are a number of people who have relatives or loved ones who don't live in the area, and actually some of them have taken this as an opportunity to move mum or dad closer to them, and we have one or two examples where we've had some really positive outcomes of families realising that actually it's an option to move mum closer to the rest of the family, and in previous home closures we've also had some really good examples of that. So there will be a number of families who will take an opportunity to do that sort of move, and that produces really positive outcomes. So when we've closed homes before in these sorts of really difficult circumstances, we've monitored minutely the care and support that people got, not just at the point of the move, but gone ongoing afterwards, to make sure that individuals are settled and as happy as we can make them. So moving is a difficult issue, but it is something that we've got expertise in, and it's something that we will do in partnership with families. And I spoke to one relative on Monday night who said, well, what if you can't find something that suits my mum? And I said, we will work until we have found something that suits your mum and is acceptable to you, and that is the commitment that we give. I'll just pick up on some of the other issues. We absolutely reject the fact that we treat people like cattle. These are difficult decisions, but as I say, our absolute focus is on each individual and their family and the people that they care for. We will look at friendship groups and making sure that we keep people together, as well as looking at the relationships that they have with staff. And in previous moves again, we've enabled staff to assist and move and follow people up in their new place of residence, and that has worked really well. Just reiterate the concern about extra care not meeting people's needs is absolutely accept that extra care cannot meet everybody's needs. It can meet a huge range of needs, but there are groups of people who we wouldn't even suggest extra care is an appropriate option for them, and that's why we need that range of services. I'm just refreshing my... Okay.
Right, councillors and the public, I have gone outside of normal procedure by allowing extra time, extra questions and extra speakers. I am now closing it to the public session, and I'm bringing it back into this committee. No, you've had your supplementary. No. Well, that will come from the committee, but right, I have made it clear I've gone outside of normal remit by allowing extra questions, extra time, because this is an issue that I do want everybody to have to say. I'm now closing it to the public. I'm now bringing it back into the committee, and the normal procedure for this committee will be members' questions to the officers, but I feel they've had quite a grilling, but we can grill them more. Then there will be members' debate. Then there will be some sort of conclusion that will be recorded, that will be this committee's conclusions. If individual members wish to go separate to that, they're more than welcome to put their own response in. In fact, I encourage them to put their own response in. But there should be a committee response that will assist the Borough Council's response to the Hampshire County Council. So I reiterate, the public is now finished. We are now on members' questions to the officers. Councillor Keating. There is a list to my right. I'll go through this list then. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I've got several questions. I'm happy to do it in stages. First question, I'm a bit confused. In relation to the initial presentation from the officer, they said there was a commitment from Councillor Perry that the site would house a new extra care unit. Then we had so it's just the funding from, so the site will be sold off to a private developer. Okay, fine. In relation to that site being sold off, does that also include the units around the outside, or is it just the D side, or is it also the sheltered housing?
Hampshire County Council only owns the site currently occupied by D-side, and so we can't really, if we did get to the situation of closure, the only site that we could offer for sale would be the site currently occupied by D-side. We can't sell land that we don't own.
In relation, it could be that in partnership, the housing association that own the other houses could possibly look to sell those as well then, or to look to move those units.
It's the same question as you asking us if you want to sell your house. That's your decision. That's their decision. Tonight we'd hear about D-side. Can we stick to D-side,
one of the
please?
points that was picked up by Nigel Pearce was about the figures in relation to residential care, and I can't see anywhere within the report. You said that you have them.
Excuse me, I'm confused. We're not saying this, shutting this because of the figures. We're not saying that. The report states that the building is coming to the end of its life and is not suitable for good care. Although everybody's admitted that the care in there now is quite good.
Chair, we've done this. We do this lots of times. Chair, I would like to ask the question. The evidence that we was presented tonight from County Council was that there was a move away from residential care and there wasn't the need. And I don't know where that is, that evidence, and I would like to see that evidence, that evidential base. We was told it was qualitative, but I would like to know where is that evidence. We was told that you've asked lots of older persons forums across Hampshire. Older persons forums are people made up of people that are over 55. I'm nearly one of those people. Now I want to know where is the evidence and can I have access to that?
The 5% reduction in the use of residential care is evidenced in the demand that comes into adult social services for the sorts of services that we are on offer. So it's evidenced in our budget papers that we're spending less year on year on residential care and more year on year on domiciliary care and on nursing care. Those figures are in the public arena, so I'm sure that that's possible to make that available.
In relation to that, if it's evidenced in relation to demand, is there obviously a coalition between the fact that there's less residential care units available, therefore less people have that option? Would that possibly point to the reduction if the policy for social services and county is to move towards extra care units? Would that be a reduction? And also, and I'd like to understand, because Peter talked about this, the funding of residential care, how does that differ, and can I understand that, to extra care? I didn't quite understand what he was saying about that as well. And is that a factor in the reduction in residential care option?
There is a huge amount of residential care still right across Hampshire. Most of the residential care that we purchase or people purchase on their own behalf is in the independent sector. So most of our spend is on independent sector residential care, and we've seen a generalised dip right across the county in the desire for people to move into what I would call basic residential care. So I don't think it is about the shortage of supply. I think it is about changing expectations. We've closed other similar homes to that of Deeside, and in those circumstances we've had feedback that families and relatives have been directed to those style of homes by our care management teams, and people haven't even gone past the front door to look at the quality of care, because they've just taken one look at the quality of the building and turned away and said, that's not for us, and I'd rather keep mum at home, or I'd rather look at a different sort of alternative. So we know anecdotally that people are rejecting ordinary standard residential care in preference to other choices. The consultation with older people's forums, we've had a number of consultation events with them, both in the development of the extra care strategy and in relation to this particular consultation process. I'll ask Peter to.
Yeah, just I've got some figures here. The latest figures that were published by an organisation called the Elderly Accommodation Council, which has got a website which tries to be as comprehensive as they can about all housing for older people, residential care homes and nursing homes. Their figures that I've got, and apologies, the latest that I could get from their website were for 2010, showed that there are over 300 nursing care beds in the Basingstoke and Dean area, and in excess of 600 residential care beds in the Basingstoke and Dean area, which backs up the point that Ruth was making, that Hampshire County Council itself runs a very small percentage of the residential care and nursing beds. You asked the question about the funding of it. If, without getting completely technical, if there is a wider debate going on at the present time about the future funding of care, but I suppose the bottom line is, at the present time, it's if you have less than £23,500 in capital, then, and you are assessed as requiring residential care and you decide to move in, then the local authority, in this case Hampshire County Council, is responsible for funding your care. And in those circumstances where funding your care, we take into account and we utilise any benefits that people have got in people's pension, and at the end you get left with £22.60 a week. The limit is set in the government benefit rates. If you've got in excess of 23,500 in terms of capital funding, then there is a sliding scale, which I don't fully understand the tariff income rate, but then your level of contribution increases and the county council's level decreases. So that's the way it works in residential care. In extra care, if you move in, then there is a clear separation between your accommodation costs, your food costs and your care costs, and Hampshire County Council only gets involved in assessing your need for your care costs. So a similar but slightly different funding regime applies around the £23,500 capital, but there's also an income side of it. An individual then, if they purchase it, they can sell their house and they can purchase a flat there, so they can downsize whatever on that. If somebody is renting, if they're eligible, if they're in receipt of just the state pension and their own benefit levels, then they would be entitled to housing benefit for their housing costs there, and they would be responsible for paying for their own meals, and we would sort out the care side of it, just as if whether they're purchasing.
Is residential care cheaper to county than extra care? Which is the cheaper option?
It varies. It varies. We have people. It varies because we're in residential care. In broad terms, we pay a flat rate, irrespective of somebody's care needs. In extra care, the care that people receive is based on their individual assessment of needs. Somebody with high needs in extra care could cost the county council more than placing them in a residential care home.
In relation to someone with dementia who's living in D-side with minimal care needs, and then would it be cheaper for them to live? Is it cheaper for county?
We wouldn't expect somebody currently living in D-side with dementia to move into extra care. We would want to provide alternative residential care, or we may even be looking, depending on their needs, about whether a move to nursing care is imminent, so that we don't move somebody twice as their condition deteriorates. And it may be in reassessing that individual's needs and looking for alternative, we might end up spending a bit more money on that particular individual. As Peter says, we'd spend about £450 a week on somebody in residential care. That's the kind of standard rate. It varies depending on the care home and the needs of the individual, but it's around about that mark. For people who are living in extra care, or who go into extra care, we may end up spending £100 a week to support them when they first move in there, because their needs are not very high. But as their needs deteriorate over time, we will increase the care, and we may end up spending more than £500 a week to sustain them towards the end of their life in their own property.
And because one of the options you talked about in
Could this be your last current question? Because you do have a
in the current. You talk about in 3.4 of the report. These models include, and you talk about all the different sort of basket of offers that are available to people in socials from county. And one of those is about supporting their own home. And I just want to ask, in relation to how the county council have saved £4.9 million in 2011-12, moving towards 15-minute visits. And I was just asking, how many 15 minutes or less do county have now and deliver?
I'm not sure where the £4.9 million saved in 15-minute visits comes from. That's not a figure that I recognise at all. I
can give you where I got that from. It's around driving down the cost of the providers. So it's about what you're funding to those providers. So that there's been the price that you pay to agencies to provide the care has now reduced.
I understand that. Well, there's two separate issues. I'll deal with the 15 minutes because that's very topical at the moment. In Hampshire, we have been careful to minimise the use of 15-minute visits for all the reasons that there's been a lot of publicity about. 15 minutes to do personal care for an individual in their own home is not acceptable. We do have some 15-minute calls, and we've just done an audit of why some of the agencies are being commissioned or are providing 15-minute calls for individuals, and it's made some interesting reading for us. one of the things that we found is that people who pay the full cost of their own care, we still organise their care, but they pay for the full cost. They will only pay for 15 minutes, so that's a matter of choice and control for some individuals. So we don't have influence over that. There are some 15-minute calls, as Peter described, in extra care, where people are popping in, checking, maybe going in and making a cup of tea. And extra care offers that much more flexibility, but we're not using 15-minute calls to do personal care, helping with toileting, showering, dressing, or other things. We do use some 15-minute calls for support that isn't hands-on personal care. So where we may ask an agency to go in and just check somebody is taking medication or prompting somebody to take medication, we have commissioned some 15-minute calls to do that. And we also very occasionally use 15-minute calls where we're finding it difficult to engage an individual who is rejecting care but is absolutely in need of some sort of care and support. And we will use an agency to pop in and begin to build a relationship with that individual on a least invasive way possible to do 15-minute calls. So generally we don't use 15-minute calls to provide any sort of personal care for individuals, and we accept as general common sense is that 15-minute calls is not a dignified way of delivering personal care for any individuals. On the other matter, I'm sorry to prolong this, but on the other matter of the savings that we've made around the commissioning that we've done with domiciliary care agencies, we have made some savings there because we changed the commissioning arrangements and our contracting arrangements with domiciliary care agencies and created what we called a preferred providers panel, so that we have an agreed hourly rate that we pay a whole range of agencies, and we have previously it was a bit haphazard, so some agencies were getting one figure for an hourly rate and other agencies were getting a lot higher. So we have consolidated the rate that we pay, and we have been able to make some savings and efficiencies out of getting a better hourly rate consistently right across the county for our domiciliary care, and that's about efficient and effective contracting and open negotiation with our providers to get a better rate for everybody.
Thank you. We have Councillor Keating, Miller, and then Baker. Councillor Keating, please.
Thank you very much. Much has been made tonight, and properly so, that the actual evidence has not been provided. You've referred tonight, Peter, to evidence that you've got, which was not published as part of the consultation process. You were asked, and the leader of the county council was asked on Monday for the cost-benefit analysis of the proposed closure of Deeside. It's certainly not in the consultation papers, certainly not been provided so far. One question I'm keen to understand and learn from, the answer to that is, when did you decide to spend money on extra dementia care style beds or rooms or whatever you call it in Oak Ridge? When did that begin to happen? And how much did you spend on it? Can I stop there and give you an opportunity to answer, please?
The Cabinet decision to expand extra care and include it, and within that, and also the nursing beds, was taken in October 2011. Yeah, 2 years ago, October 2011, when the 45 million pounds was committed to extra care. There was also a recognition, as Ruth has referred to, that the demand for nursing beds was increasing across the county. And so the nursing, that was when the decision, or shortly after that, the decision was taken to increase the capacity of nursing beds. In terms of the costs of the extensions, the nursing beds is actually outside what I deal with. I haven't got the figures here tonight in terms of how much of what it's costing, but we can report back on those figures. in terms of just the other figures that you mentioned, the figures that were included in the consultation document that we proposed when we put forward when the consultation was launched at the end of July, they included the then estimates of the costs for refurbishing the residential care homes, all 4 of them, including D-side, and there was a number of estimates. During the course of the consultation, one of the other areas that we were given authority to do was look at the options around the site, and further work has been done on that, and a further report will be given. The amount of money that we have invested in individual extra care schemes in the past is a matter of record.
If I may, Chair, my next question, and it's directly related to D-side, not tangentially, is how much money have you invested in upkeeping D-side as a care home in the last 5 years?
I don't have the figures, but there has been investment in the home. A new kitchen has been put in relatively recently. Decoration has taken place within the home. It's really important for us to try and maintain the environment and the hygiene of the home to the best of our ability. We wouldn't let it run down just because we have to make some long-term strategic decisions about that. We need to maintain the quality whilst we've got residents in there.
One of the questions I asked at the public meeting on Monday related to the neglect, the absolute neglect was obvious as you approach the building. If you approach the building, you see all of the windows need either replacing or repainting. I don't know which, I'm not a builder. But it certainly portrays an image of neglect, which is inaccurate to an extent, because inside you have spent money and it's obvious that you have spent money. But it appears to me that the obvious external neglect is being contributing to people's attitude, because the internal of the building is capable of being remodeled. The external of the building is capable of being updated or uprated or painted or whatever, but the internal part of the building is quite capable of being remodeled. And have you considered any form of remodeling of that building, please?
As I said, the consultation paper that was published on at the end of July had broad ballpark figures in terms of the costs involved in remodelling. During the course of the consultation process, further work is being done, and part of the evidence that will be put in front of Councillor McNair-Scott when the decision is made at the end of November will be more detailed costings around what it would cost to increase the room size at D-side, modernise it, and bring it up to modern standards. And looking forward, that is work that is ongoing at the present time. If we didn't feel that we could do that before, that detailed work before launching the consultation, that it was appropriate that that work was part of the evidence that was placed to be weighed up when the decision is made at the end of November.
Thank you for that, and I'm glad that somebody's getting their act together in terms of finding the costing. But if you have a consultation and which closes tomorrow, and you then say, oh, by the way, we didn't give it the evidence before, and we haven't got it now, but we'll have it next month, it really just beggars belief that the consultation has substance. It does beggars belief. You know, but I'll come to that when I follow up later. That's all I've got the question for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are directly related to D-side. Certainly no tangents. Thank you for letting me quote you. I understand the capacity, the rooms available at D-side is 33, is that correct? Okay, 33. And currently there are around 25 occupants. I don't want to go into, obviously, personal circumstances, and we're back to this capacity at Oak Ridge. That's what I'm trying to get a handle on. I understand we looked at a dementia kind of capacity at Oak Ridge would be an extra 10 beds, rooms, whatever. So it's a capacity against numbers issue. Has there been any assessment of the current occupants at D-side of how many would be relocated in those dementia nursing, I think that's nursing care beds? Is that assessment being done? Because I'm looking at a capacity issue here.
Detailed individual plans have been made for some individuals, and careful assessment has been made for some individuals where families and that individual have wanted to engage in those discussions. Other families and other individuals have not wanted to have those discussions prior to the decision, which is fine, and we do not want to put any pressure on people to have to start making decisions before the 27th of November. Obviously, we have kind of had a look strategically at the capacity issues. Not everybody in D-side has dementia and needs dementia care, and it's about 50% at the moment. Oak Ridge offers specialist dementia care as it is at the moment, and what we were looking at is delivering additional specialist dementia care capacity there, but we will also, so that there will be the 10 new beds, but what we're also doing, and I think it's only a reasonable thing to do, is attempting to hold vacancies. So should the decision be made, we will have, as well as the 10 new build beds, which won't be available to the summer, but we will have the 10 new build beds and other vacancies that we're holding in the home. So we would hope to accommodate more than 10 people at Oak Ridge, depending on the need. But as I said, there are a number of people who haven't got particular ties to the immediate location, who are quite willing to look at other residential care or nursing care beds elsewhere, kind of beyond that geographical area. And as I say, a number of people have already made that decision to move on. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, we're getting towards it. Now, I think there's been a lot of concern. We heard a lot of views tonight. In Basingstoke, is there any other capacity, if you will, for, and we're looking towards dementia very seriously, or the people want serious nursing care at that level, available? I know we're being very parochial here about looking at Basingstoke, but it's very important to families and residents for their loved ones if they have to get to that stage. I'm just looking at how flexible we can be, or you can be.
Yes, I think I tried to say in my presentation that there are 9 independent sector homes in and around Basingstoke. There's no in the immediate vicinity of Basingstoke, there is no other Hampshire County Council provision, but there are 9 independent sector homes, and Peter's just pulled out a list of those. We have those on our website if people want to go and have a look, some of which provide excellent specialist dementia care, others have got mixed, and some people, some of the homes will only take what's designated as frail people, but there is capacity in Basingstoke for to offer that range of choice for people. So, but people, people have said that they do like to have Hampshire County Council care, and it is that kind of label is very important to them because they know that the quality of our staff is good.
And thank you.
Councillor Baker, please.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions, please. I was wondering what the average length of occupancy is for someone at D-side, please.
I don't have the actual details for D-side specifically, although we have looked at average length of occupancy of our residential care homes across the county, and it's more than 4 years, which is over and above the national average. National research suggests that people going into residential care, and it's a really difficult thing to talk about, but about 50% of people who go into that sort of institutional care die within 15 months. In Hampshire, currently, we're supporting our residents for over 4 years.
Yeah, thank you. There are, I believe, eight empty rooms currently at D-side. And are those empty because there have not been anyone interested in taking those rooms, or because the county has effectively closed them and not looked for residents for them?
We haven't admitted any new residents because of the consultation, and we think it would be unfair to admit somebody into D-side with this decision pending. Should the decision be that D-side remains open, then we will fill those beds.
And you said that some families had engaged with you and were positive about using it as an opportunity to perhaps relocate their relative to somewhere that's actually more convenient for the family. Are you able to give us an idea of what that number might be?
I'm reluctant to go into detail about that for confidentiality reasons.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I thought you might give me that reply. Then, has the county considered then taking a rather longer term look, and seeing as there are clearly residents who have families who are happy there, and who have families who are very happy that their relatives should stay there, has the county not taken a longer term view and considered the opportunity of allowing people to stay there as long as they wanted to stay there? And if the average occupancy is 4 years, then over a period of not very many years, then without having to forcibly evict anyone.
That has been something that's been raised in the consultation and that we will take into consideration. It is difficult because if you have that declining residency in a building, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain the quality of the environment and just the kind of atmosphere of the property. So where we've closed homes before, what we found is actually, whilst we've said there's no absolute deadline on people moving out, people don't like to leave relatives in homes that are half empty, or where there are rooms that are cold and empty and not being used. But it is something that we have heard, and we will take into account in terms of consultation and have another look at.
Can I be just clear, following up on that answer? So what you're saying is that where the county's done this in the past, then over a period of time, people are actually then willing and content to look for alternative accommodation.
I wouldn't say willing and content. I think where we've taken a decision to close a home. We closed Felston Home in the north of the county last year. I think the view was that once the decision had been made to close the home, a number of families and residents decided to make arrangements quite quickly, although we've been very clear with people that the decision to close the home is one thing, when people have to leave is another thing, and we've said that we would only move people at a rate that met their needs. We're not going to say the decision has been made to close the home on the 27th of November and you have to be out by the 1st of January. What we've said is the decision is to close the home, and we will work with people as individuals, as I said before, to find suitable alternatives, and we don't put an absolute deadline on when the home has to be emptied. So we're working at the pace of the individuals and their families. But our experience is that once the decision has been made, that people decide to make the alternative arrangements quite quickly.
Are you able to give me any idea, or the committee any idea of over what length of time that usually is?
Over a period of 3 to 5 months. But it's going to vary because, as I say, we're trying not to be dogmatic and saying this is how it's got to be, because we absolutely are committed to working with individuals and their families.
One last question then. Am I right in understanding that the staff have been given notice that their jobs are at risk of redundancy? And if so, could you explain why that was done?
Because yes, there has been a parallel process, and discussions have been had with the staff. I think it's a requirement. I mean, clearly their jobs are at risk because there's a decision to be made. Discussions have been had with the staff about, should the home close, where would you like to go, what would you like to happen, are you interested in a voluntary redundancy package, which enables us, should the decision be made, then to go on and do the planning. If the decision is made not to close the homes, then all those arrangements will be stood down.
Thank you. I've Councillor Washbourne, Peach, Day and Bierman. Anybody else wish to speak on close? Anybody else? I will then close it. Thank you. Right, Councillor Washbourne.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard from families tonight about their concerns about what's going to happen to their families should Deeside close. And we've talked at great length about the care that extra care can offer. And obviously it's not something that's going to be suitable for everyone. One of the things I just wanted to pick up on, one thing that was also mentioned was telecare. Could you tell me a bit more about telecare and what that actually involves and how that would fit into these types of care packages?
Telecare is something that we're increasing the use of in all settings. So telecare is something that we can use in somebody's own home to support them. So, for example, an example of that is a man that we've been working with who cares for his wife who's got dementia. He's quite determined to keep her at home, but was finding that he was confined to he was actually interested in gardening, and he was confined to the house because his wife would get up and wander. What we were able to provide for him was a pressure cushion so that he could go out in the garden, but as soon as she left her chair he would be alerted and would be able to come back into the house. It actually transformed his life, and he was really positive about it. So very simple things like that for people in their own homes. I think one of the relatives referred to we have monitors that can monitor people getting in and out of bed, and that can be used in their home, in a nursing home, in a residential home, in an extra care setting, or in people's own homes as well. There's a whole range of gadgets that can be used to assist people to take their medication. So a little kind of alarm and a ping and the box opens and you can take your medication. There's a whole range of things, and Peter alluded to wristbands and really sophisticated telecare monitoring can monitor people as they move around the house, whether they pick up a kettle, whether they've left the gas on. So there's a lot of sophisticated technology which we're beginning to utilise. Only if people want it, but to support people in whatever setting that they're living in.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. Thank you.
Councillor Peach.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. We heard earlier when the presentation was going through some of the limitations of DSI, but I wondered if you could explain exactly what those limitations are, and then continuing with the remodelling suggestion, which, while putting the costs aside, what would be possible and what could be done if that was an option?
Yeah, we've looked, or the work has started and is ongoing at the present time. First of all, about increasing the size of individual rooms. One of the things that we're quite clear about is that although there is a legal minimum, Hampshire has aspirations to give people more space than is required under the legal minimum. We don't really want to. The legal minimum size in a residential care home is for somebody to have 12 square metres, and that's their own living space. So we're looking at increasing the sizes, which make it easier for staff to move around around individuals in beds without having to move without problems. Secondly, we're looking at making all the rooms en suite so that there is no issue of people of issues around the toilet, that everyone has got their own toilet and so access to it, and also the dignity side of that. Thirdly, we're looking at the overall layouts of the buildings to make sure that if they are adaptable and bringing up to more modern standards, both in terms of physical disabilities and for people with dementia. And the final thing that we're looking at is the question of looking ahead, and we have to look at not just what you do to the buildings now, but you have to look ahead. One of the issues in all our homes that we're looking at, and in the current residential care homes, in the nursing homes, and in extra care developments that we're building, is whether the whole building is adaptable and capable of being used for people as for some with bariatric conditions, as people of heavier weight, shall we say. And one of the things there is the question of whether the building itself is adaptable so that somebody can be moved with dignity. You've got two choices if people have problems with mobility due to weight. You can move people with a mobile hoist, which means you need the space to manoeuvre around the bed. Or alternatively, what we're doing in the modern develops in extra care, making sure that the structure of the fabric of the building itself is capable of everywhere supporting tracking, so that people can be moved in a more dignified manner. And the other side is also looking at not as giving people the bathrooms as well as toilets. We're looking at a whole range of those sides, looking at whether the fabric of the building is possible to be adapted in that way and what impact it would have on layouts.
Thank you. A couple more questions. That's all right. And then so moving on, I mean, there's obviously a concern around dementia. And so if there was a move to other schemes, I mean, I'll take Oak Ridge out of it because you said that would be specialist towards, that wing would be dementia. But extra care itself, can it cater for any level of dementia, or is it simply no dementia at all?
The studies that, and as I mentioned, we're working with the Department of Health, because this is an issue not just for Hampshire but for all authorities. Established a working group last year around housing and dementia, and looking at how both general needs housing and the wider community can be made dementia friendly, and how also extra care. And the view that is coming out, and there's representatives from that, from the Alzheimer's Society, Thomas Pocklington Trust, Joseph Braintree Trust and various other research organisations, as well as local authorities and providers. And the evidence from that is that none of us know which of us around this table, to be blunt, are going to develop dementia in later life. It's not something that we're in any way able to forecast. The evidence shows that if people move into extra care schemes before they develop a dementia, then the setting is able to support those people throughout their natural life. We have one specialist scheme already in Hampshire that dated from the first round of extra care developments that we did. It's a specialist dementia extra care scheme in Eastleigh. It's a small scheme, 21 units. I haven't visited there this year, but I visited there last year and I said, what has happened to the people who've left here? And they said of the last 5 people who had to leave that scheme, 1 of them had died in the scheme, 2 had gone into hospital and died shortly afterwards. 1 had gone into hospital and then moved on into a nursing home. And I've forgotten what happened to the 5th. But the evidence shows that if people move into schemes when they're in early stages of dementia or before people develop dementia, extra care schemes are capable of supporting people as their dementia develops. As Ruth said, we don't see extra care as the whole answer to people whose dementia has developed in the community before they make a decision that it's time to move.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Day, please.
Big clap, sorry. Thank you, Chair. As I listen to this, there's been some mixed messages, and some of my questions have sort of been asked in a roundabout way before. But one of the questions, first of all, one of the statements has made, well, the buildings has reached its life expectancy and is no longer. I understood it earlier on. It was no fit for purpose how it was spoken. But then I heard people who've got from the public who've got family, friends, or past loved ones there in this in Deeside, and that's not the picture I got. And I also heard the officers say they've upgraded the kitchen, they've done some other work there as well. I also heard people say the building on the outside was looking a bit tatty there. So for clarity, when does this building actually become extinct in the eyes of Hampshire County Council? What's the date? And is it 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 or whatever? Because that would help me in my first question. So I don't want to fudge around the question, just give me a straight answer, 10, 20, 14, 15, 16 or whatever. Can we do that?
No. I can't give you a definite answer. We can continue to put money into the building to sustain it as best as we can. But that doesn't overcome the fundamental problems that it will become increasingly difficult to provide good quality care for residents as they come into the building. So at some stage, and my personal view is that if the home doesn't close following this consultation, it will be a matter of years, maybe 5-6 years, but at some stage we will have to come back out and say, well, we struggled and we've tried to make sure the building is fit for purpose, but it is really coming to the end of its life. It's difficult to predict. I mean, we could pour a lot of money into and it wouldn't be substantial refurbishment, but just keeping it going to the best of our ability. But it gets more and more difficult for staff to manage care, and staff do a really brilliant job, but you do hear staff often talking about the difficulties of some moving and handling difficulties when residents have got really complex physical care needs. And just things like putting a mobile hoist into a room and a commode means having to take out people's personal furniture. So it's not a black and white issue. I mean, if we have to keep the building open, we will, and we will do our best with it for as long as we can.
So 5 or 6 years, you could keep the building open with minimum maintenance. Is that what you're saying to me?
I'm not a buildings expert, so I don't want to be put on the spot about that. That would be an uninformed guess. But I mean, we would need, I think, a professional opinion from our property people about the upkeep, but it just in terms of practice and quality of care going into the building. As time goes on, the quality of the building becomes a challenge for the quality of care.
If I may, Chair. So the second little bit of confusion with me was this. Councillor Keating asked a question about what plans that we've done on D-side, and the officer said there was nothing, no plans. And then Councillor Peach asked the question, and then suddenly we were looking at putting toilets and en suites in. So I was a little bit confused on that, because my thoughts, as Councillor Keating asked the question, was as someone who worked a long time in the NHS and also managed some of the services there, and also changed the shape of the building. When we wanted to do that, we had to put a plan together. So I was a bit surprised how Hampshire County Council, the big seat of power in Hampshire, didn't do that. But then I was confused with the message from Peter that we had done some. So presumably, you must have done a plan of what you would need to keep that building in service, and you must have a cost to that. Is that not a fair question?
As I said earlier, during the course of the consultation, we are working up the detailed costings of what it would cost to bring the buildings up to standards. And as I said, the information on that will be completed, and it is part of the evidence that will be put before Councillor McNair Scott to make the decision at the end of November. The examples I used of bringing the rooms up above the minimum standards in terms of the size, making them ensuite, giving them toilets and individual bathroom facilities, strengthening the roof, the building itself so it could take hoists, are the sort of things that we think would need to be done to any building to build it up to standards which would not see it just survive for the next year or so, but survive into the future and be the sort of building that people by choice would choose to move into. Those are examples. As I say, the detail relating to each building will be included. That was one of the points that in the original consultation document we said we would do, and we will do that, and the evidence will be there for Councillor McNair Scott to weigh up.
Well, we welcome that Councillor McNair Scott gets that evidence and costings to go with that, so we know exactly where we're going with that. And my final point, really, because I don't want to, I was talking about buildings here, it's about people. It's about the 26 residents that currently reside in that property. And, you know, if it is 5 or 6 years that the building could survive with very little maintenance there, and we're saying that the average stay there is about 4 years, doesn't that make good sense to invest in people still, those residents that are there? Because we are all getting a bit older, and, you know, we all do need, some of us at some time will need some care, and I think we need to care about our old people more than we do, and this feels like a cost-cutting exercise, and I feel very upset about the whole thing.
Thank you. Councillor Bierman.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, I hope these are 3-4 snappy questions, but the first is just to say I do thank the officers from the County Council for facing up to some severe questioning, and I think they've been thrown to the wolves a bit. And I therefore throw a question at our officers, and that is, was the portfolio holder from the County Council formally invited to attend?
I don't know the answer, but I'll ask the officer.
The invitation went to the officers to present the information to this committee. I certainly did not invite the portfolio holder from the County Council.
Thank you.
Perhaps there's a slight excuse there, but I think it's only slight. Not from here, but from the absence of the portfolio holder when ours is here. Taking the relevant one I'm talking about, taking the scenario of D-side closing and taking on board the importance, as has been mentioned by several public speakers, of community and maintaining the community in the home. Do you see it as being feasible for all of those who want to and are part of that community in D-side being able, en bloc virtually, to transfer to Oakridge at the appropriate date so that some sort of community could be maintained if that were the way one moved forward?
I don't want to sit here and make promises, but what we will do is, and part of the work that we would want to do with residents is identify friendship groups, important social networks within the home, because what we know often is the relationships within the home between resident and resident are very important, and where residents or families or we involve advocates as well, have identified with us that some individuals would like to move together, that we would facilitate that wherever possible, and that's our aim to do. That's one of the underpinning pieces of learning that we've taken from how to do this piece of work successfully. So I'm not going to say that we would, lift and move the group en bloc, but we would certainly take into account those social relationships that people have.
If I'm interpreting you correctly, the implication is that it might not be possible to accommodate all in a sort of block transfer. I mean, I'm not saying picking them up in one day and plonking them elsewhere on the same day, but that what might go beyond just the odd couple of relationships sounds as though that might be in jeopardy.
Well, we know we've got the 10 beds coming online, and we are holding as many vacancies as we possibly can at Oak Ridge in anticipation of the expectation there will be demand, because it's been very clear that people want a lot of people want a local solution. I don't think all 26 current residents will want to go to Oak Ridge, and certainly we've had indications of that. If we can accommodate as many people as possible who want to go to Oak Ridge, we will absolutely do our best to do that.
Can I widen the topic a little? And you'll have to forgive me, and the members of the public will. I don't know the area or the site well enough to, it might be an obvious answer, but reference was made earlier to the sheltered housing that's around it, and the implication was that there's a natural link between them and some transference. So if one closes D-side, does it then undermine the workings of the sheltered housing around?
Balmoral Court, which I understand is the shelter scheme next door, no longer has a resident warden. We have no care contract there. So the level of care needs of individuals who live there that can maintain there is much lower than we would see either in extra care or existing residential care home. Without knowing the ins and outs, the details of all individuals, I would be surprised to find that there is a greater flow of individuals from Balmoral Court into D-side than any other area in the surrounding area. As I say, we haven't got the details, but given the nature, Balmoral is one of a number of sheltered schemes that exist within Basingstoke and Dean area, which offer a similar level of service.
Thank you. One last snappy question, I hope, Chair, and that is, I have heard a lot about the extra care system, and all that you said in your introductions I found attractive in terms of the benefits being brought by it, but that doesn't remove, as I see it, the need for this traditional residential care. And in all that you said, there was no reference, there was much talk about all the things that we're doing on the extra care side, but no reference apart from expansion of Oak Ridge for residential care. Now, I think it's common knowledge, it doesn't need any statistical analysis, there's a lot more of us getting older, life expectancy is greater, and the demand for residential care isn't going to go down. And it sounds to me, from what you have said so far, that the county is leaving that all to the private sector, and it's not minded to do what you yourselves have admitted is something that is appreciated, i.e. local authority run homes. But it looks to me as though they're on the way out in favour of the private sector.
Hampshire County Council is one of the very few local authorities who run their own residential and nursing homes, and the County Council is very committed to maintaining the stock of residential and nursing homes. part of that commitment is to maintain a stock of good quality residential and nursing homes, and that's what we're trying to do, is maintain the quality of the stock that we've got, and our commitment to building additional capacity at 2 of our homes is part of that. But what we're also trying to do is create that spectrum of care as well, right through from care at home, choice of home, whether that be independent sector or our own home, and a lot of people would rather be in the independent sector than a local authority home. Conversely, some people would rather have local authority homes, and make sure that our residential and nursing provision is fit for purpose for future, is actually somewhere that people will walk into and think, yeah, no, this is good enough for my mum and dad, and this would be good enough for me when I get to needing that. And at the moment, some of our stock is not of that, or certainly at risk of not being the quality that we would want to maintain. So the local authority is committed to maintaining a foothold in that market.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. I think I'll draw my own conclusions from that last answer, but thank you.
Councillors, we have one more question, Councillor James, and then we're going into discussion.
There's 2 questions in relation to, and it's following on from what Martin was saying. We've got 600 residential units in Basingstoke care independent sector. We have an ageing population in Basingstoke. I mean, it's going to be an absolute bulge in the future, we're told. But county are not going to be providing any residential care in Basingstoke. So it's not, in relation to the spectrum that you're offering us as a sort of model, is that, you know, you're not offering that. Is that the case?
Will be offered at Oak Ridge.
So how many units are at Oak Ridge in residential care, other than, no, I don't mean extra care?
So at Oak Ridge we've got 34 residential and 47 nursing beds.
And we lost Newman and Bassett, which was a residential unit, and we've lost, I don't know how many residential beds has county closed in Basingstoke in recent years.
It's just Newman Court, Newman Bassett. It would have been about 34. It was a building of similar design.
And how many beds are in D-side? How many residential beds are in D-side?
33.
So in relation to the spectrum of options available to people in Basingstoke as they age, we've just seen the loss of 70 odd beds of residential care. You know, my concern is we're the options available. We're looking at a model. What you said in your presentation was that that the extra care was for the very end of life, and for those.
What we're looking at is extra care. The lower age limit is 55, similar to general sheltered housing. But the average age at which people are moving into extra care, not just in Hampshire but nationally, whether they're run by registered providers, so registered social landlords, or in the purely private market, is about 75. And that's what we're looking to cater for. So we've looked at the demographic over 75, and you're right. In Basingstoke, the population of over 75s in 2011 was about 10,800, and it's forecast to almost double to 21,300 by 2030. At the present time, the figures, as I said, for the provision of nursing care beds was something over 300 in the area and something over 600 for residential care beds. So there is some element of choice there. And as Ruth said, Hampshire County Council in general across Hampshire provide something around 10 to 15% of the residential care market. 85% of residential care beds in the current situation are provided outside of Hampshire County Council. Our aspiration is to say at the present time there are 64 extra care beds in the Basingstoke area. So there's 64 as opposed to over 300 care home beds, nursing home beds, and over 600 residential care beds. Our aspiration over the years from now to 2019 is to increase that provision. The objectives that we would like to do is to increase the extra care provision from something like the current 64 to something around another about 400. That would be the long-term objective. So at that stage we would be providing 20 beds per 1,000 people over the age of 75. Still a long way less than either the residential care home sector or about equivalent with the nursing home sector. What we're seeing is that if, as Ruth said, the reduction in demand for residential care beds over the last few years have been about 5%. We're looking at it, we're looking ahead to the future, and based not just on what we're doing, but on national trends as well and other studies, is making sure that there is some provision of extra care. At the present time, no socially rented or affordable low-cost ownership extra care is developed without local authority and other public support. It is not something that the market is delivering on its own. The market is delivering residential care and nursing accommodation on its own. If we do not support low-cost extra care, then we won't have that sort of alternative, and it will not be an option of choice, an affordable option of choice for people, not just in Basingstoke, but across Hampshire.
Thank you. Councillor, your 2 questions ended up 5, but we're now closing to members' questions and going to members' debate. The whole point of what we're doing tonight is to get a committee recommendation of what we actually want to say. It doesn't stop anybody from putting individual ones in, but we're trying to draw a committee recommendation together. The first person I had was Councillor Tucker.
I'm going to say it was a question, but I'll try and work around it if I may. During the conversations, it sounds very much as if it would be wonderful if Deeside not wonderful if Deeside closes, but should it close, that some of the residents would be able to stay together and go to Oakridge, which it sounded wonderful. And then it suddenly occurred to me, hence I put my hand up, that perhaps also the people who've been caring for them at Deeside would be able to go over to Oakridge, which would make it even nicer for them because they'd be cared for by the same people. And that to me was a really nice thought in my mind. Can I just make a comment that I have actually seen an extra care place? I've been twice actually to the one at Hook. And we were all of us saying, when can we move in? It was just so amazing. It was really, really wonderful. If you've never seen it and you do get a chance, do go and see somewhere like that, because we are just so lucky to have it. It's wonderful, and the more we can have, the better.
Thank you. Councillor Keating.
This is not a question. I've been helping, not hugely, but I've been helping the Deeside relatives campaign, and I was proud to do so because I was not convinced, and I'm still not convinced, of the case to close Deeside. When I began to get involved and read some of the papers, I realized that the papers are offering a political choice which has been predetermined by the Tory politicians in Hampshire, and they're certainly not being obstructed by the Tory politicians in Basingstoke, especially the county councillors. The reality is, if you have a consultation, then the consultation needs to be comprehensive, needs to be founded on the evidence which leads to the potential decision. It has to be founded on that. When the relatives of the Deeside Keep the Place Open campaign asked for simple information, just simple information. What does it cost to keep it open? How much needs to be spent to keep it open? What would it cost to remodel it? What would it cost to update it or uprate it? There are no answers. There are no answers. And it is a great pity to me that the officers, and very able they are, have been put in the firing line tonight instead of the politicians. Because it is politicians, and that non-existent or private, certainly very private, cabinet member from Hampshire that we've never seen in this campaign. She'd never turn up anywhere. Right? She's now going to make the decision based on evidence that has not been given to this committee or to the campaign people themselves. The people in Deeside themselves and their relatives don't know a lot of the information that Anna McNair Scott, when she comes out of hiding, will decide. She'll decide based on the costs, which we don't know yet. She'll decide on the comparisons, which we don't know yet. But we're not going to know ever, because she'll have decided. And we'll then end up with, the reality is, smaller is better. Smaller is better. If it's small locations like Deeside, you get better care. You get better community spirit. You get better results in terms of living longer, a better quality of life. The decision to expand Oak Ridge raises doubts in my mind about any commitment to look at Deeside objectively. Because here we have an organisation which said we run Deeside and we run Oak Ridge and we fund both of them, and we have previously decided, by the way, to expand Oak Ridge. Oh, by the way, we're now going to decide should we keep Deeside open. The reality is that the justification for closing Deeside has been created by expanding Oak Ridge. So the decision was made previously. It's absolutely sham consultation. If you end up, it really is a sham consultation. If you end up saying we can't give it the evidence, or we won't give it the evidence, and we don't know the costs, but by the way, the consultation finishes today. I mean, it is a nightmare scenario for any group of residents. It's a nightmare scenario for all their relatives. So I'm putting forward a motion, Chair, because you said we have to have motions, and I'm going to give you one, that this committee should support Deeside being kept open. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beerman.
Thank you, Chair. I fully understand, despite the fact that some of the speakers didn't seem to rate it highly because things are already well run at Deeside, I do accept that having ensuite is an improvement. I'm sure if I were in that sort of accommodation, I would want ensuite. I wouldn't want to be shuffling down the corridor whether I had to queue or not. So I can support the idea of improvements, and if they're going to happen at Deeside, so much the better. That's clearly something that many people here tonight would support, and I certainly have no problem in supporting that. And yes, I'm happy to second Councillor Keating's motion, by the way. The next thing is just to say, in the past, and I have no evidence to be sure that that is the case here, but I have in the past heard county officials say we really got to sort this out and come to a decision. And then, of course, we will have to do some public consultation, which sort of is a bit of a nuisance, but we're sort of required to do it. I don't know that that is the case here, but it has a bit of a feel of that, not least because we're still in the process of gathering some of the details. Now, it seems to me the cost of refurbishing Deeside, rather than throwing the residents out, would have been one of the first things one starts with. And the fact that we haven't started with that strikes me that there was a prior decision, and therefore that wasn't necessary to work out. And this might now sort of be forced upon the system, but it's late in the day because people are being asked to consult or to respond in a consultation to something where they don't have all the facts and can't think it through properly. So to me, it's got an unhealthy smell about it. And I can't help feeling, and this is more guts than evidence at this moment, that cost saving has got something to do with it. Now, I'm all in favour of cost saving. If we can spend public money better, that's great. If we're saving public money so that we can help the private sector, that is the wrong objective, and it's not one I would want to be a party to. And so I've said probably as much on the immediate topic. I'd just like to throw in a procedural request, Chair, and that is when we have similar discussions in the future, can we make it part of our process that we formally invite the decision maker? Because with all respects to the officers, they're just feeding information to the decision maker. And the decision maker in these days, I don't like the system, but we have portfolio holders who make the decisions. And so they should be there to answer for their likely decisions and to take the immediate evidence, as several people have said here tonight. There's a difference between reading a paper, which is sort of remote and uncontaminated, if you like. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Clinical, that's the one. Thank you very much. Thank you, audience. It's a sort of a clinical decision rather than having the feeling of the reality and the impact on the community. So can we make that part of our process, please?
Could the officers please note the last comment, because that's not really for this committee tonight. But we now have a motion on the table. It's been proposed and seconded. Would the proposer like to... Would the portfolio holder like to speak first? Please come to the table.
Thank you. Before you actually put forward the motion, yes, I would like to speak. It's my decision tonight, listening to everything that has been said, as to the way forward, and I will listen to your motion. I'm getting very mixed messages here, or confusing messages, because we have a situation where we have Deeside. I have been to Deeside, I have talked to the staff, and I have spoken to the residents. And they're in varying, about 90%, I have to say, and I have asked for my stats and figures, have varying degrees of dementia. Some of them have been there for 24 years, and the rest have been there 5 years, when you go in and speak to them. So we have Deeside, and we have the people in there. You've said tonight that that building is fit for purpose for probably another 5 years. Well, you did. It has been said. Possibly. Now, secondly, we then have, and Peter, you did a very good sales job on extra care homes. I must say I have a health background, and I was instrumental in working with Hampshire County Council, as you know, on the extra care homes. Now, the extra care homes is not built. I've not heard anything mentioned on the strategic health needs, etc. We in this borough are doing an awful lot of work with our health and well-being on dementia. There is going to be, I can't quote because I've forgotten it now, but I think it was 12%, it may be more, I don't know, of people in Basingstoke in the future will have dementia. The government has even said that you don't actually know, and it takes a very wise person, and even GPs don't know, when does one have dementia? And they go through varying stages. Now, the question I'm going to ask is, have the county looked at how many people in the future are going to get dementia in Basingstoke? They're not going to be able to go into extra care homes because at a certain stage they won't be able to press a button. They won't be able to do anything. They just need care, compassion. And I'm not into the politics tonight. I'm into the people. And I think it's about time that we listened to our residents and to the people of Basingstoke. Why are you moving 25 people out into varying different places? You haven't got the care home there. You're going to put 19 in the home in Oakridge. Where are you going to put the other ones? I know people get friendships and things like this, and you're going to move them out. So why aren't you looking at the long term first, and then look at D-side separately? D-side does not actually come into this equation, because you're saying it's nothing to do with cost. So this is why I'm getting very much tonight, as the portfolio holder, mixed and confused messages, because we're doing one thing here, we're doing one thing there. Your consultation paper, I haven't got it with me, but it's at the back, says something, and you're asking the people that to get extra care homes, we're closing all these homes. Well, what are they going to say? You know, these people are deciding on D-side, and it's really nothing to do with it on the consultation paper at all. So that's all I have to say, and I'll listen to what you have to say to the motion. But really, there's got two, the process here, you've got two separate issues, and one doesn't belong in the issue, in the consultation. Fine, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. It's been proposed and seconded. For clarity, could I ask the proposer of the motion just to repeat what the motion was, please?
I'll refer you to the webcast. In the absence of you doing that, my motion was that this committee should support retaining D-side open. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second is happy with that. All those in favour, please show. So we have a motion, we have a vote. Those that wish to debate the motion then, but please, new information, not repetitive stuff. Right, Councillor Baker, you had your hand up first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will support the motion, but I would like to ask the mover and the seconder if they will take some additional clauses in it, because I believe that as part of our response, we should raise our concern about the consultation process and the adequacy or otherwise of the information that was available to us to make sense of the consultation. And I'd like to take up the specific point that our own portfolio holder has just made about, in particular, wanting to see how it fitted into the county's view of how the long-term needs of the borough of Basingstoke and Deane will be met. I particularly feel that we didn't have information about the costs and the possibilities of refurbishment and remodelling of D-side, but I'm content for that to be part of the general concern about the adequacy of information. But I would like a specific point to be made that, well, we're a borough council with responsibility for our residents, and we're being asked to respond to a consultation about a really important issue. So I think we could make it more than a one-line answer.
I have to interrupt here. We've run over time. We have to. Can we please invoke standing orders to keep going after 9:30? Because I would like to get this finished.
Yes.
Agreed.
Move to suspend standing orders.
No, look, Cameron, I don't have three things on the go.
Point. We cancelled a meeting, and we've now got officers and other people sitting here, visitors, and we've got one, and it's now 9:30, and we've not finished this one item. And how many
Right.
more things have we got? And last month we cancelled a meeting. It's an absolute disgrace, and we should say that if we're going to extend standing orders, we
Councillor
should do it
James,
until
if you
10:30.
would please sit down, we can actually finish earlier. We need, if we wish to continue tonight, we have to have a proposer and seconder to invoke standing orders to continue. Thank you, Councillor Bierman. First of all, to invoke standing orders to continue till 10 o'clock, okay? I've had a recommendation till 10 o'clock. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you. All those in favour of continuing? Right, thank you. We can now continue. Councillor Baker, if you'd like to finish
Thank
yours.
you. My final point would be that I would like our response to the county to include the statement that we didn't wish to see any of the current residents of Deeside forced to move out of their homes.
Right, does anybody else wish to speak on this motion? Councillor James.
I wish to support the motion, and I want to move away from the issue of the residents that are there, and I think that is a really important point that's been raised tonight in relation to those 25 residents and where they go. But I would like, as a committee, that we look at the issue of residential care, and if we're looking at models of care, and if county are investing in models of care, and we have a population that is going to double, is it that we in Basingstoke wish to retain residential care? I don't know that we have in this council have had that debate. I don't think we've had the evidence, and I would like to look at that whole issue. And as Cathy has said, we have an ageing population that is going to have dementia, and if extra care isn't suitable, and if that's where the funding for county is going, should we be looking at closing existing residential units? And I'm not so sure we should be doing that. I'm also, I think that what has been said, the actual consultation is really very, very poor. And if you actually look at the questions that they ask you in the consultation, is exceptionally poor. And I would have liked some cost analysis as to what it would have cost to have the
Sorry, Councillor James, we are debating the motion.
Yes, I am.
The motion was, we have a motion on the table.
And I'm debating it, Chair. And I would like some
please
cost
stick to the
analysis.
motion.
I am sticking to it. I would like some cost analysis as to what it would cost to keep actually, he does it all the time, don't worry. He doesn't like women. How much it would cost.
I remind you, you're on webcast.
I know, and I'll say it again, sir. I'd say it again, Chair. You bully me most meetings, and I think you have a problem with women. As I said to you, as I was saying or trying to say, and I can't remember what I was saying because he does this to me every time. I want to know what the cost analysis of keeping that unit open would be if we were to refurbish that unit and bring it up to shape. And therefore, I support the motion. I also want to point out, and I had real concerns about some of the alternatives that were being talked about tonight, one of them being a wristband, and we'll be able to identify how people lift up a kettle, and what we're going to do then if they don't use the kettle for a week. Are we going to do anything about it? And what happens about that wristband, and who is going to monitor that? And the other thing I want to talk about is the 15 minutes that they talked about, and we was told it wasn't for personal care. Well, back in 2012, Felicity Heinsohn said visits for 15 minutes could include checking someone has taken their medication, checking a client has not fallen, putting something in the microwave.
Please stop. We have a motion on the table.
I know, and that's why I'm
It does not. That motion has nothing in there about 15 minutes or.
No, and why I want to keep.
If you wish to lengthen this out and not have the motion, can you please state that? No, we have procedures. We are a democratic system. Councillor, please let me speak.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the table that Councillor
Chair,
Keating proposed.
I am talking to the
Councillor
motion.
Bierman
I am
seconded.
talking to the motion. The reasons
Please
why
proceed.
I support the motion and the reasons why I support it is I have concerns about the alternatives. And I want to make sure that if we keep a residential unit open, I want to say why I think we should keep it open. And the concerns I have is around the 15 minutes. And one of the other reasons what they give you for those 15 minutes is putting something in a microwave or helping clients to the toilet or taken into consideration. And what Felicity Heinsohn said, the executive member in 2012, was she said 15 minutes was sufficient for these tasks and said that a new hourly rate paid to carers, providers for the service between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. were reasonable. Now, that's the reason why I wish to keep a residential unit open, or at least to have the facts in front of me. Thank you, Chair, very much.
We'll now get back to what we actually came here tonight for, which is to get a committee view and make a
Could I
recommendation.
just have it on
to the
record
board as a
again?
whole.
Can I have it on record again in the minutes that I felt harassed by the Chair? I would like it minuted.
It is webcast, and there may well be
I'd
further
like
action on
those
it.
that minuted. I have a right as a councillor that I was harassed again, and I would like it minuted.
Councillor,
Thank you.
we will take this offline tomorrow.
No, Chair, I want my minutes. Officer, can I have my it minuted that I felt harassed?
No, I'm afraid I'm not able to minute that for you. If you want to make a complaint, you may do so.
The issue between you and me can be a complaint tomorrow. Tonight we're here. We have residents of Deeside that we're talking about tonight. We're not talking about procedures and other stuff. We have a procedure to follow. We will follow that procedure, and we will get a committee view of where we are on this. Councillor Keating put a motion. Councillor Bierman seconded it. All those in favour of that motion, please show. I am being advised by the officers we need the wording for it. For the motion.
On your behalf,
Yes,
I've
yes,
actually
please.
got the words. I wrote down the words. Okay? Which so I can read it back to you. Pardon?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got it written down.
Yes, please. Could you please read the motion that we are being asked to vote on?
Okay. The first part of the motion, which has now been amended by agreement, is that this committee should support Deeside residential care home be continued to be in existence, right? Do not be closed. That we also have concern about the consultation that was conducted, and that there is confusion currently between what Hampshire County Council is doing, and we want to see the Hampshire County Council long-term needs to be met, and the evidence to that effect. The issue raised by Councillor James, Councillor Laura James, also referred to models of care, but that wasn't part of the motion. And the last part of the motion was that we do not wish to see residents of Deeside be forced to move.
Thank you.
Is that
Councillor
enough?
Bierman,
Is that
do
enough for
you, you're seconding that? Thank you. So we have a motion on the table. All those in favour of that motion, please show. All those against, please show. Sorry? I did ask you, Councillor Bean, if you were happy to, and you did agree. No. Please, councillors, we've had all those in favour of the motion, all those against the motion, please show. I can't support that motion on the second part, so I'm against. Is anybody else against?
There's only one
against it.
Right, is anybody else voting against it? In which case, councillors, the motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, can we thank the officers who've come from the council?
Yes, I would like to thank the County Council officers. I felt they've come under rather a barrage, so thank you very much for coming. And I don't know whether we'll see you again shortly or not. Right, I believe it's best if we take a short break now. Can we keep it to coming back at 1:45 for a 3-minute break, please? And there's a strong possibility we might go straight on to item 14, parks and open spaces. But can I please take some officer advice before I make a decision? Councillors, if I could call people back to order, please. We have a few minutes and we're going to try and get through item 15 on the agenda. Councillors, could I ask everybody to please take the seats? I don't know whether are they in the building? No, there they come. Right. Right, Pete, thank you. Due to what happened earlier and the necessity to finish by 10, item 15, the appeal process for application to prune and remove council-owned trees, I believe is non-contentious, and I believe we can get it knocked on the head by 10 o'clock. So we're taking paper E. Which is the last paper in front of us.
Can I just... Laura, the paper is about the terms of reference for the tree panel, and they're out of mandate at the minute, so it's really important the terms of reference can be agreed so they can operate. So it should be an administrative matter.
I thank the officer for pointing out the tree panel cannot operate at the moment, but we have an officer here, so would you like to introduce it?
Thank you, Chair. So this paper is to agree a revised terms of reference for the existing tree shade single issue panel to provide a mechanism for them to be able to hear appeals for applications under the recently adopted new policy for pruning or tree works to council-owned trees, to provide a mechanism for them to be able to hear appeals against applications. The revised terms of reference are outlined at Appendix 2 with a summary of the changes at Section 4.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say on it, or?
Unless the committee would like me to actually outline the proposed changes.
Could you just clarify? For me, it's moving from 4 to 5 members.
Okay, it will be moving from 4 to 5 members. There's clarification of the process under which the appeals will be heard. So the minimum of once we've got 4 appeals which are waiting to be heard, or a dependent has been waiting for 3 months. So also we'll be looking that the chair will have the final casting vote rather than the officer, which is the situation that we're in at the moment. And there's clarification as well, just on the process of how we go about setting up the meeting in terms of site visits and applicant presence at the meeting as well.
Thank you. I'll call the portfolio holder forward.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, can I congratulate Frank for staying so late and say thank you for him to do this. Secondly is, I really do hope this is a procedural one. We have these appeals that are sitting that can't go ahead. That's not great for residents. We shouldn't do that. So I do want to get this. So if this committee has different views around the policy, fine, happy to take that up at a different time. Would stress to the committee that this is the procedural of how we set up an appeals policy. It is not around what the policy is. Leaving this out with you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you. Around the policy itself, it doesn't say whether it's going to be open to the public. It doesn't say whether minutes are going to be taken. Do we also, as councillors, get a list of those applications, or do they? How do we get to known about that? Does it say that?
Could I just ask the officer to clarify for everybody's sake?
Yeah, the ward member is informed of applications that come in, as are members that sit on the tree single issue panel.
And are there minutes taken of of this meet? Is it a formal process? So in licensing appeals and things, are the minutes taken so that there will be a record as to this decision in the future? If it comes back in 2 years' time, because it says there it has to be 2 years elapsed.
There's no formal sort of outlined process for taking minutes, but the recommendation, of course, will be minuted, and the reasons for that, along with the officer presentation, will all be in a report given to the single issue panel as well prior to the meeting.
So I think there should be minutes of the meeting, because if it was 3 votes to 2, or I think there needs to be, so that when it comes back in 2 years' time, and they want to reapply, that the panel can look at the minutes and see what was said then and how it's differed. So I think minutes are important. Within it says 3 or more objections, and then you can go to appeal. Is that households or is that persons?
That's people. Yeah, it's been brought in line with the DC committee objections, so it's persons, not households.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. On page 49 of 49, eligibility for an appeal. An applicant or a ward member has requested an appeal in writing. Does that include an email? Or does it just have to be in writing?
Yeah, that includes an email, yeah.
Councillor Beerman?
I think one of the questions that Councillor James asked hasn't been addressed, which is whether members of the public are invited. Now, having sat on one recently, certainly there was a visiting councillor, and the applicants were there, or an applicant was there. To my mind, justice has to be open justice. I don't see a problem in having members of the public there. Indeed, I think we should have them there if they wish to, and indeed webcast, yes.
Councillor Day, then Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Chair. On 3.5, can I just get clarification where it says that, I've just lost 3.5, hold on, where it says about successful applicants are required to pay for the work. I mean, does that mean if it's is a council tree hanging over someone's garden, that they have to pay for that? Am I misreading that? Sorry.
Yeah, this was the policy that was adopted in March 2013 to permit residents to fund works that otherwise there wouldn't be funding to undertake. At the moment, we have a budget constrained for dealing with safety issues and for trees that are cast in extreme shade. The purpose of this policy was to widen the remit of widen the situations whereby a resident may be able to have a tree pruned, subject to being able to fund that work. And also, as long as the environmental impacts of doing so were acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Sir Keating, and then...
Thank you, Chair. Any appeals by a public body needs to be minuted. If there is no minute, then there is no record. That's the bottom line. And the minutes need to record the reasons given for the appeal and record the discussion that occurred, and it has to record the decision made. Any public body that operates without minutes is, I would suggest, operating ultra vires. Any public body. We are talking about spending public money to allow people to appeal against a decision. We should record that, and I would agree with suggestions from elsewhere that these decisions and these minutes and these meetings should be webcast. Now, can I just move on to one final item, if I may? Any proposal which says if you're poor and you can't pay for it, we won't do it. If you're rich and you can pay for it, we'll do it. That is fundamentally wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. Thank you.
Councillor Court.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm probably off on a slight tangent here, but basing this on some experience that I had in my own ward. Item 3.5, successful applicants are required to pay for the work, and I don't have a problem with that, but we did have an actual case where they didn't pay for it, they did it themselves, threw the tree over onto council-owned land, and then there was quite an argument afterwards as to who was going to remove it. Maybe I don't know if this is the place, but maybe we ought to put in there, maybe required to pay for the work and have the branches removed. Or pay for the branches to be removed.
Basically tidy it up. Thank
Yes.
you. Councillor Bierman.
I think we're largely talking about process still, which, and we have to be careful we don't wander into, in fact, my motion to council, which was basically saying we do need to spend a lot more money, and at the moment we don't have the reserves. So at the moment, the only way most people are going to get anything done is to pay for it themselves. But hopefully that might change. The only other thing I'd say in addition to what Councillor Keating has said, he did say it should be webcast, but I think webcasting isn't enough. It has to be webcast and the opportunity for the public to be present, because the two are not necessarily the same thing.
Councillor Washbourne.
Thank you. Just one thing I wanted to pick up on. I don't know whether it's because I've not just been able to find it in the report here, but it doesn't say anything about when the meeting will be quorum. Obviously we've got going up to 5 members, so how many members will it be before they're quorum? Also the other thing that I've gone off on a tangent now, forgot what I was going to say. Bear with me one moment. No, sorry, I've forgotten it, but that was my main point about that. When will the meeting be quorum?
Thank you. I'm looking at the office. As long as he's aware of all of that and that's taken in, can we actually look at page 43 or 49, the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2? Can we please agree those? Then that is this paper sorted. 2.1 is it's tree shade becomes a tree appeal, which is logical because it's the whole tree we're looking at. The revised terms of reference as appendix 2, which is here, are accepted. As taken note of what has happened tonight at the meeting. Yes, because the officer is nodding, yes. And the portfolio. Sorry.
I need to clarify about the webcast issue. Certainly there's no problem with taking minutes throughout the meeting and having those available as well, along with a clear reasons that the decision was made, as well as the officer's report will all be made available.
Thank you. Do we all agree? Portfolio holder, please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going to say about the minutes, I think the officer said to take records, and I agree that they should be absolutely public. Absolutely think the public should come in. I think there are other actual meetings of this council which aren't webcast, and I would suggest that actually rather than this committee making the decision and the process on that, that we should knock it to Constitutional Working Party, who are already looking at how all meetings, the public engagement in all meetings. It seems to me to be little cart before the horses for us to say this particular one we should be doing. Okay, audit and governance, etc. I don't think is webcast at the moment, is it? Is audit and governance webcast at the moment? Licensing isn't. So I would urge the committee, let's accept the procedure here, flag it to CWP should we be looking at having everything webcast?
Thank you. Did you want to?
Chair, I think it's a sort of quasi regulatory committee, and that's why I would support it. But I mean, there is logic to saying let's do it all in one block as part of the Constitution.
Could you address the quorum in the...
Chairman?
Portfolio holder?
I hear a whisper from Councillor Harvey that the rule is usually that each committee sets its own quorum. I would suggest that if you have a committee the size of 5, quorum of 3 sounds about sensible to me. I would be quite happy if you said quorum of 3 out of 5 seems eminently sensible to me. You don't want to set a quorum of an even number. Yeah.
Right. Can I clarify from the chair that everybody's happy with that, please? Thank you very much. Meeting's finished. Apologies going over 10 o'clock. It's whatever. Sorry. Well, sorry. So the officer's telling me there's something to say. Sorry.
Got 2 papers.
We have a continuance because we have 2 papers not completed tonight. Now, we have a suggested date for the continuance of this meeting. Could the officer please, what date was that?
The suggested date is the 24th of October, which is next Thursday.
What I've asked the officers, if I don't believe people around the table at the moment are able to say yes or no, they can turn up to that. So if you could email it out in the morning, if that is a suitable date and everything's... I've been told it was the original P&I date, so anybody who's on P&I will be spare for that date anyway. So the 24th of October. It's not clashing though. You say the P&I's been cancelled? Yeah. The P&I's been cancelled. Yeah.
Well, not personally, no.
Yes. Not enough councillors done. Right, thank you very much, councillors. There will be an email tomorrow, please note it, probably 24th of October. 10:05, meeting's closed.